Welcome to Source One's live coverage of the 2025 federal budget final vote. My name is Nico Lagan, my co-host Jason Lavigne, and today we are joined by two of the Canadian Taxpayer Federation directors, Kris Sims and Franco Terrazzano. Terrazzano, welcome to both of you. You must have your name bastardized quite often, right?
Yeah, a lot. I mean, hey, you got my first name right, which is good. I remember growing up in, whenever we would have like a supply teacher, they would call me Marco or Jean-Luc or something like that. So, hey, first name's right. That's good.
Six. I can pull off 6 letters. Thank you, though. Thanks for the vote of confidence there.
Is that something that you're looking forward to?
Guys, thank you for being here, by the way. We're going to start there, but I want...
Did you do a Freudian slip?
That's a great question. I'll let you guys answer. That was not on purpose. You're catching me with, yep, that was not on purpose. It's great, though. But you guys could answer that question if you want.
Sorry, I didn't hear it. What was the question?
Will there be
Are we looking at a vote of non-confidence?
Yep. Oh, where we are. Yeah, I mean, this is a vote of non-confidence. I mean, who knows what's going to happen in the next 2 hours here. I just saw that Elizabeth May says that she's now going to vote to support the budget. So what, like the government's one vote away from a majority, a couple away. All you need is a couple abstentions. And there you go. The budget passes. I'd be very surprised if we head into an election, right? I imagine that there will be some MPs who forget to vote today, somehow they might have something else come up. But look, like one of the biggest issues that I see over the last couple of weeks is that the Carney government, the federal government has this budget and it's a disaster, a complete disaster. And instead of actually talking about how bad the budget is, right, borrowing tens of billions of dollars every single year, mortgaging Canadians' kids and grandkids' future, we're talking about palace intrigue. So I actually think that's like the worst part of the last 2 weeks or plus, really, of political theater in Ottawa.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, did
Sorry,
she
I couldn't
freeze?
hear your question.
No worries. Is there going to be a non-confidence vote? And do you have any comments on the budget so far?
Oh, the budget, I don't like calling it that. It was just a fiscal dumpster fire. That was a bunch of flaming wreckage. You can't call something that it has an overspending bill, otherwise known as a deficit of close to $80 billion, and call that thing a budget. Franco's right. I'll just be blunt. This was a lot of distraction. This is a lot of palace intrigue. The numbers just aren't there. Okay. So right now, the Liberals, if we include the floor crossing, give or take, we've got 170 seats. Okay. If you combined the Conservatives with the Bloc, you're still only getting 166 or 165 seats. This dog don't hunt. This is not happening. So I know a lot of people would like to have an election. They would like to see Carney fall on a budget. But in my experience, and it's almost 20 years on Parliament Hill, this was a lot of ground softening beforehand, weeks ahead of time. Oh, I don't know if the budget's going to pass. It's catnip for the parliamentary press gallery to get them talking about it. And guess what? If they're talking about who's talking to whom and who's not sitting with the cool kids at the CAF on Parliament Hill, they're not talking about this disaster of a budget, which is more than $80 billion over budget, and we're spending more than $50 billion a year on interest payments. So if I were to make a prediction, yeah, the budget passes. The reason why there is such interest, though, to be fair, is that budgets are automatic confidence votes. Usually, in the run-of-the-mill day-to-day voting, they aren't confidence votes. You can have MPs vote their conscience. You can have them vote along party lines. They can whip the vote, not whip the vote, and it doesn't matter. However, budgets are automatic confidence votes. That's why there's a lot more high stakes right now.
And Franco, the parliamentary budget officer, came out and made some comments, kind of saying basically he's cooking the books a bit. And now they want to get rid of him and replace him with somebody that's a little bit more discreet and tactful. What are your thoughts about those kind of comments?
Oh, I mean, look, the PBO, Jason Jakes, absolutely sliced through Carney's creative accounting. It's one of the most damning reports that I've read from an independent budget watchdogger probably throughout my entire career. I mean, like, first of all, this fiscal anchor, balance the operating budget. was always a fake fiscal anchor, right? You aren't balancing squat if you borrow tens of billions of dollars every single year. But what the PBO showed is that you can't even take the government's messaging around this fake fiscal anchor as even remotely credible, right? Even the PBO says the government isn't going to balance the operating budget. They're going to run an $18 billion operating deficit by 2028. And the reason is that Carney's just adding more spending into capital. Right. And like the actual number, I believe, was $94 billion. So Carney has taken $94 billion of what should be operating spending, right? Day-to-day spending. And he's throwing a capital spending label on it to try to spin Canadians into thinking the government's financial picture is rosier than what it actually is. Right. So kudos to the PBO, kudos to Jason Jakes for, just giving Canadians the straight goods. And now I want to get into that question you had around the job posting. Right. And the government specifically saying with tact and discretion. Well, that really worries me because Canadians, we need a budget watchdog. We don't need a government lapdog. Right. And it looks like with this job posting, it seems like the government is trying to muzzle the budget watchdog, trying to chill the budget officer's fiscal critiques, right? So that is what's really the concerning part about here. But I mean, boy, this PBO report is one of the most damning, if not the most damning reports that I've heard when it comes to government finances.
Can I jump in there real quick?
Yeah, Kris. Yeah, and also I want to throw it to you, and I also want to remind everybody the Fraser Institute agrees with this particular assessment.
Yeah, for sure they do, because the math isn't mathing, as Franco often says. I'm sorry for snorting out loud, but the whole notion of tact and discretion, it's just so Ottawa. I gotta say, it is so Ottawa. They would have been in a complete tizzy when Jason Jakes was doing the right thing and he was swinging for the fences. He was defending taxpayers. He was being that sharp-toothed watchdog at committee. So he was expressive, he was direct, and he was clear. And he was saying things like, the spending is unsustainable. It was stupefying. That's all true. But take a look at the response from official Ottawa. Now their job posting is reading for tact and discretion. Like, I'm so glad I'm wearing my pearls because I can officially clutch them. Like, they were more worried about him being, indelicate with his comments, rather than the fact that they're running a close to $80 billion deficit. Folks, this is not a garden party, okay? At least it shouldn't be. But they're acting as if we showed up in boots and we didn't wipe them before coming through the door, when all we're saying is, you gotta quit wasting money. You have to stop piling on the debt. The budget should really only be a few charts long. It really should. Maybe 10 pages, okay? It is close to 500 pages. It is mostly fluffy nonsense and creative accounting. But unfortunately, the international credit rating agencies, they're not amused. They don't think this is cute. They don't care if Carney is doing a spangled label on his bucket and calling it investment instead of spending. At the end of the day, it's the bottom line and how much money they're spending. And we've already gotten a warning.
Yeah, and hey, let me just add one last thing to all those politicians out there. If you don't want to be called out for having unsustainable and stupefying debt, don't release unsustainable and stupid budgets.
Let me ask you guys a question.
Really is.
But let me ask you guys a question, because one of the things that they did through that budget, they used the term investment, which we all know that governments are not capable of investing money. They tax money, but they can't make profit, and that's the definition, unfortunately for them, of investment. But as per my calculation, they have 89 point something, so let's call it $90 billion on top of the 78 million that they announced for 25-26 over the next 5 years, which they're calling investment. Is that lying? Because to me, they're using definitions wrong on purpose. It's what we call double talk, if you guys like George Orwell. But to me, that's exactly what's going on right now. But is that a lie? Are they lying to the Canadian people?
Yeah, one of you guys said cooking the books earlier. I like to call it creative accounting. I mean, take it whatever it is, right? But the government is literally taking about $94 billion over a handful of years that should be operating spending and just putting the capital spending label on it. Like that's what's going on, right? And that's what was exactly in the PBO's report there. So number one, okay, you have Carney claiming that he's doing more capital spending than what he's actually doing, and a prime example of that is corporate welfare, right? Like operating subsidies to businesses. That is not an investment for taxpayers. That is a cost to taxpayers, right? Like, I'm just going to pick a couple random examples out of the hat. Definitely have never happened, right? When the government gives $12 million to a massive grocery store to get some new refrigerators in, that's not an investment for taxpayers, right? When the government gives a bucket of cash to like a pasta manufacturer, not like that would ever happen. That's not an investment for taxpayers. That's just pure corporate welfare, right? But number two, let's attack the root ideology. Okay. The root ideology is essentially the government can borrow its way to prosperity.
Mm-hmm.
Where have we heard that before?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, 10 years ago during the 2015 election of the Right Honorable Justin Trudeau, when he said he would run these tiny little, small little deficits, balance the budget in 4 years. And why was he running those deficits? For infrastructure to grow the economy, right? That was the 2015 playbook of Trudeau. Well, how did that work out? Right? We don't even have to talk in theory. We can look over the last 10 years. It was a failed social experiment, right? The economy stagnated, inflation ravaged out of control to a 40-year high. To this day, for many working Canadians outside of the Ottawa bubble, life is still unaffordable, right? So we just saw this playbook. You don't even have to use theory, right? We don't even have to talk about Austrian economics. Although we'd like to, but you could just look at the last 10 years of the Trudeau government to show that it was a failed social experiment.
By we, Franco means him. He would love to talk about Austrian economics, but no, he's absolutely right. He's absolutely right. That is what Trudeau ran on. Folks who are old enough to remember the 2015 election, you remember Prime Minister Stephen Harper at the time making a joke at Trudeau saying, oh, he's going to run little itty bitty deficits. Little tiny baby ones. Aren't they cute? Well, that never happened. And we didn't grow the economy from the heart outwards, as that was actually a line that Trudeau said. The budget never balanced itself. And all joking aside, I actually can't remember. Franco, was it 2019, that budget? He had promised to balance that one?
Yeah, he promised to balance the budget in 2019. He missed that target by a small little $20 billion.
This is it. This is it. And so we haven't had adults in the room when it comes to the budget and it comes to math and money now for 10 years. And I think what's upsetting a lot of people, if I can speak personally, it's upsetting me, is that I think some people, no matter who they voted for, did have some hope that Carney would be that adult in the room, that, pointing at your socks and joking about your haircut, that would be over now. Like we would actually start talking about debts and deficit and paying it down and being able to afford things again. But we're not seeing that. And to me, it's inexplicable why we aren't seeing more maturity and fiscal reasoning coming from Carney.
It's a good point. And I remember when the budget, the budget would balance itself. And now we have this one, the debt will pay for itself. So we're getting some more smoke and mirrors here. So we're going to have another person join shortly. But before then, we also had another switcheroo with the Canadian pension plan or Canada pension plan. There used to be a liability when it was listed in the budget, but now it's an asset as part of the debt to GDP ratio calculation. What's your thought there, Franco?
Yeah. So, I mean, this isn't necessarily new, right? So the Trudeau government was doing this for a little while as well, where they would point to Canada's net debt to GDP ratio. And I'll give another kudos. Jason, I think you mentioned the Fraser Institute earlier, but the Fraser Institute has been calling out the federal government for a number of years now, where, look, what they're doing, again, is trying to paint a rosier picture of the finances by including the CPP as the assets against the debt. But look, like that essentially implies that politicians could raid the CPP fund to help pay down those debts, right? Liabilities minus assets. But look, again, kudos to the Fraser Institute, because for a number of years now, they were rightly calling out the Trudeau government for trying to play the same trick on Canadians. And I remember this because I've been going to parliamentary committees now, testifying there for what, a handful of years. And I remember every time I would go to these committees, politicians would say the same thing. Well, look at our net debt to GDP compared to all these other G7 countries. Number one, if you're talking about these other G7 countries and you're bragging, that's like bragging about being the most sober person in the drunk tank. Right? Like they're all massively in debt. Like, well, that's not a good thing that you're beating out one of these countries that's running insane fiscal policy. But number two, I mean, the government has essentially been trying to paint this rosy picture of the state of our finances for a very long time. I remember because I had a nice couple back and forths with some of these Liberal MPs in committee. But also too, right? You expand the numbers, you look at gross debt, and you expand the comparison to more industrialized countries, more of our peers, and Canada's right around the basement. Like, we are not good. Then you look at some of the provinces, right? Like Newfoundland and Labrador, which is like really not doing well. And, the picture of Canada's finances is really quite bad.
And welcome to Gov Corrupt. Thanks for joining us. And we'll jump on a question for you in a second here. Kris, can't we just take our mortgage and move it as an asset, and all the money that we haven't paid out yet can become an asset and we can start using it for our debt ratios?
This is one of the things, right? Is that the government should be doing its accounting in the same way that people do, right? I'll give you another example. So if you started going to your lender, okay, your bank, you wanted a new line of credit, and they're trying to figure out whether or not you're a good investment. Can you pay this back? And will I be paid back with interest on time? If you start telling them big, tall tales like, oh, well, my brand new pickup truck with all the bling on it, that's an investment I'm making on your behalf. The jacuzzi tub I'm installing, again, that's an investment. My big screen TV, investment. They don't buy it. They just see the dollar figure. They just see the spending. And so this is where the government has got to get real. And I have to stress, if you are listening to this show, especially if your member of parliament is a Liberal, I beg you to please email him or her, phone him or her, tell them that you expect them as Liberals, okay, to wake up to this budget reality. Tell them to reach back into the ghosts of Liberal government pasts, okay? Back when Paul Martin was the finance minister, big Liberal, okay, total red team jersey there. They started taking the deficit seriously because they had to. We even gave them a form of a tax fighter award at the Taxpayers Federation because under Preston Manning's urging, they did slay the deficit. They've got to find those same people within government again, because again, we're all paying for this. Like, the debt interest isn't something, right, Franco? Like, I think sometimes, Franco, people think that the debt interest payment is something hidden in the budget, that we don't really pay it for realsies. But it's a line item. Like, we're on the hook for that every year, right?
Yeah, it's right now it's $56 billion a year, right, in interest charges. So another way to think of it is that interest charges are now costing you more than $1 billion every week, right? Well, what's $1 billion? I mean, that's enough money to build a brand new hospital every single week. Yet none of that's happening because that money's going to the bond fund managers on Bay Street to pay interest on the debt. But really, the way I like to think about it now, Jason, I here in Alberta, right? So you don't have a provincial sales tax. Super jealous for many reasons. But look, like, so Jason, every dollar that you're paying in sales tax, or anyone else, every dollar that you're paying in federal sales tax, every single dollar of that is going to pay interest on the debt. Right. So like it's really bad. And then also by 2029, think about it this way. Out of every single dollar the federal government takes from you, 13 cents of that dollar will be going to pay interest on the debt. And like, look, like, just ask the Saskatchewan NDP of the 90s what happens when debt interest charges spiral out of control, right? Like that's the biggest proof that the biggest threat to any government service isn't even really political ideology. It's really not, but it is the interest charges on the debt. Right. And Janice McKinnon, who is the finance minister out there under the NDP in the 90s in Saskatchewan, she'll tell you all about it. I mean, what that province, they closed like dozens of rural hospitals across the Prairie province in the early 90s. And that was under the NDP banner.
Yep. And it was because of overspending leading up to that. It wasn't just the NDP government that had blown the books on that. It was years and years of bad spending. And yeah, you start shutting down rural hospitals, that's when push came to shove. Like, folks, we don't want to see this at the federal level, but like I'm really worried about it.
I just saw a little comment too about us and Paul Martin. I mean, look, I don't care like what jersey a politician wears. You know, and if anyone has been critical about the Liberal government and the way they spend money over the last 10 years, it's definitely been the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, and it's probably been me as well, right? Like as the federal director, I mean, you go back even in parliamentary committees. But what I will say though is, I mean, they took what would be $150 billion deficit like today in today's terms, and with 3 years they ran a surplus. Okay, they fired 45,000 bureaucrats. I don't know. There's a lot of things that you could question the Chrétien government on, but I do think they deserve credit for what they did on the finances, taking $150 billion deficit and within 3 years balancing the books. I think there's a lot of criticism you can throw their way, but I do think they deserve kudos on that front.
Well,
just want to jump in on that. I would like to point out that under Chrétien, I forget who the Bank of Canada governor was at that time, but hundreds of ounces of gold were sold under Jean Chrétien, probably to help balance those books. So we did liquidate our assets. I don't know the exact number, but somewhere around 200 or 300 tons of metric gold were sold. One of the largest sales happened under Jean Chrétien.
And I was just going to say, Canada needs all the credit it can get. So, Franco, if you can find credit somewhere in our history, that's great. Give credit where credit's due. But Kev, I was going to come to you and say, listen, if any Canadian gets audited now by the CRA, we could just let them know that we want a new auditor that has tact and discretion, because that's the new standard that we have here. What are your thoughts about that?
I'm not too sure exactly what you mean in terms of tact and
the
discretion.
Budgetary officer, they're looking for a new one that has tact and discretion. So because he didn't come out with a report they liked.
Yeah, well, I don't really have too much of a view on that. I was listening to some of the things that you were saying, and one of the things you were talking about was, balancing the books. And, just want to point out that all budgets are balanced, right? Every single budget is balanced either in the form of direct taxation or in the form of indirect taxation through inflation, right? So either it balances and the government doesn't spend more than it takes in, or it doesn't balance and the cost of inflation drives up, and then the consumer actually ends up paying that hidden tax was in the form of inflation. So every budget does tend to balance, and we've been the ones that have been balancing the books in the form of higher prices over these last few years, which is why prices are moving to the upside and will continue to move to the upside through currency devaluation.
Yeah, and that was one of the big things that happened, especially during the heart of the pandemic, right? I'm just trying to find some of these numbers here, but during the heart of the pandemic, you had the Bank of Canada print up about it might have been a little bit more, but when I last looked at it, it was about $370 billion out of thin air, and that's just the money creation directly from the Bank of Canada. I'm trying to pull up a quote that I had following Budget 2021. I'm seeing if I can find it. Okay, so here it is, right? So the 2021 federal budget projected a deficit of about $155 billion or $3 billion a week. Okay. By a remarkable coincidence, a few days after the budget was released, the Bank of Canada announced it would purchase $3 billion of Government of Canada bonds every week, right? Just a complete coincidence, right? Of course, everyone knows it's completely independent. That must have been just a complete coincidence, I'm sure. But a great point on the inflation tax. Really, I think it's the most pernicious tax of all. For one reason, it's the most undemocratic form of taxation. A lot of great economists have talked about, when the government can't sell Canadians on what it's spending and can't raise taxes to pay for it, it relies on the money printer. And you've seen that throughout decades, throughout centuries, essentially, although new means of printing money now. But the second thing I'll say, too, is that the inflation tax is also fundamentally a redistribution ploy, right? Those closest to the money printer, they get the dollars first before the purchasing power declines, right? So it's not just a tax. It's not just an undemocratic tax. It's also a form of wealth redistribution.
One of the things that I keep on hearing about this budget is that it's bad. It's just going to continue the destruction of Canada as we've seen over the past 10 years of liberal policies. But the thing that blows my mind the most, and I always want the guests on my shows to answer, is why is it that Pierre Poilievre isn't doing anything about it? He had the chance to do a vote of non-confidence 2 weeks ago if he would have voted yes for the amendments of the Bloc Québécois wanted on the budget, because the NDP was for it, the Bloc was for it, the Green was for it, so he had the votes necessary to do a vote of non-confidence. He chose to vote for the Liberals. So why is it that if this budget plus the past 10 years of liberal policies are really destroying the Canada that we know, the Canada we grew up in, why is it that the Conservatives are not raising the alarm, as in, we're cooked if this passes?
Franco?
Yeah, okay, that's a good question. Look, I'll also just point out that also Mr. Poilievre in his election platform wasn't promising to balance the budget either. Right. It was another big concerning thing from the CTF perspective. And look, we're happy to call out conservatives whenever they're doing some bad stuff to taxpayers. Like, Kris, what was that last guy's name who ran on a carbon tax?
I don't recall.
Previous conservative. Yeah, I forget his name as well.
Yeah. Big fan of the carbon tax, that guy. Yeah.
Yeah. So look, economically speaking, like just pure economics, like I do think the Conservatives should run on cutting spending and balancing the budget. In fact, even politically, I would say that they should run on a against Ottawa platform. Like, this is how the elites in Ottawa are soaking you, right? And just keep pointing out all the different ways that Canadians are getting gouged because of the government, because of the bureaucrats, because of the politicians, because of all the appointees who are shielded behind the golden gates of government. Like, I think politically that would sell. But unfortunately, I don't know what their political calculation is. I have no idea. But, you know, I would love to see a member of parliament being like, no, like even a smaller deficit is not the way to go. We have to balance the budget. We have to legitimately cut spending. Now, since the last election, I've seen Poilievre move in a better direction, right? I know he was on with Vashi on CTV saying that we do have to, cut billions of dollars from the federal bureaucracy. Like, that's good to see. Like, finally, some politicians willing to actually say, like, it has to be more than attrition. Like, we actually do have to cut billions in spending. So that's good. But like, the truth of the matter is that we are so far past the point of tinkering that regardless of what party's in there saying, oh, it's just attrition or, you know, some small savings, like, we have to go much further than that.
Poilievre was, or go ahead.
Yeah, the way that I see it is,
Jeff, you were next, Jeff. Yeah.
Yeah, the way that I see it is we need somebody like, you know, a melee to come in and, you know, basically take a metaphorical chainsaw to the government. But, you know, that's not going to happen until there's a lot more pain that Canadians have to feel before they get to that point, before somebody like a melee can come in and actually do what needs to be done. So we're going to basically continue down this, you know, this path until we get to this, you know, this moment, this, you know, we get into default moment, and then we're like, oh crap, we have to do something about it. And the market actually forces the hand of government, where, you know, you can no longer print money out of thin air to buy government bonds to fund government spending, because, you know, the yields have, you know, long-term yields have risen too much, and it costs too much to borrow to do that. So I believe that it will be the market that will force the government's hand, and no politician, especially in Canada, will have the spine to stand up and say this has to stop. So it's the, you know, the collective decision of the market. That could take 5, 10, 15 years for that to happen.
Hey, Jason,
Kris,
I just I see the time. I'm sorry. I gotta run. I'm so sorry, but this is a busy day with the budget. If you guys have any other questions, let me know, but I gotta kind of cut her off here.
Yeah, let me get one more to you before you run away. How close are we to the same situation as Greece, where we do have to do some austerity measures, maybe take out IMF loan and deal with things that way?
Oh, I'm not sure how close we are to Greece. I would say we're approaching where we were in the mid 1990s. I'm not sure we're exactly there if you look at the exact like apples to apples comparisons. So around 93, 94, if you measure it in today's like deficit to GDP, you're looking at about $150 billion deficit. So but look, today's $80 billion deficit is huge, and it's approaching that. So I would say we're probably coming closer to like what Canada was approaching the early 1990s before, the Martin Chrétien Liberals did what they did. But one thing I will say is that it's crazy how fast things become a problem, right?
Mhm.
Things aren't a problem until, oh my God, they are now a huge problem, right? The smoke turns into massive fire very, very quickly. So it's very tough to give you an exact date or timeline of when something very bad will happen. But I do think we're heading down the steps, just like we were in the late 80s and early 90s, approaching a very, very bad financial situation.
Before
thank you very
you
much
leave,
for
can
your
I
time.
ask him, do you have 2 seconds to answer a very
Yeah,
simple
yeah.
question? At least
Yeah.
in my head, I assume that it's going to be simple. So maybe I'm upselling you right here. Okay. Like we talked before, I'm trying to upsell you. What would
Good.
be your top 3, top 5 things the government should do to balance a budget?
Yeah. Okay. So number one, and this is going to sound a little small, but number one, all MPs have to take a pay cut or cut their pensions, cut their perks, all MPs. And I'll build on that in a second. You look back to even the Harper years when they went from the 08-09 recession and brought it towards a balanced budget at the end of his reign. I think 2014-15, slight balanced budget. They started by freezing their pay. They even changed the pension rules to make them at least in a better direction for taxpayers. Okay. Then you look at in the early 90s, you had the ministers and prime ministers. They took a cut. You go to the Klein Revolution. Oh, it brings a tear to my eye even just thinking about it. In Alberta, what's one of the first things they did? Well, they cut the number of ministers. They took 5% pay cuts. You see similar things that happened in Saskatchewan and under the Harris government during the Common Sense Revolution in Ontario. So number one, you have to cut your own pay and perks. And the reason is because this leads us into number two. To be able to find savings into the bureaucracy, you have to show that you have the moral authority and you're also willing to take a cut, right? You have to kind of build that up. And the second place that they have to cut is the bureaucracy. Like, make no mistake about it, they have to fire bureaucrats. Like, not just cut the pay, not just end the bonuses, not just tinker around the margins. No, they have to fire a bunch of bureaucrats, right? Trudeau added 100,000 bureaucrats in a decade. He ballooned the cost of the bureaucracy 80%. The bureaucracy now consumes more than half of the government's day-to-day spending. So there is no fixing the finances unless you fire bureaucrats. No way around it. And number three, just for good measure, eliminate completely end corporate welfare. Corporate welfare is like $11 billion a year, right? So think about it this way, right? You take money from Canadians, you take money from our small businesses or entrepreneurs, you take money from market investors who want to put their money in Canada, and then you give it to these select multinational corporations, or not even just multinational corporations, some businesses down the road. Corporate welfare, at best, is a complete shell game. But in reality, you might as well just send these politicians to the casino when they're picking out business winners and losers. So those are my three. Look, you got to cut the MP pay. You got to cut their perks. Number two, you got to tackle the absolutely bloated bureaucracy. And number three, completely eliminate corporate welfare. Those are three good places to start. There's many others. Here's another one. I'll give you one more. Foreign aid. Foreign aid. You got to cut foreign aid. In the last year where records are available, the government spent $11 billion on foreign aid. To put that into perspective, that's almost twice as much as what the government spent through the entire Department of Veterans Affairs.
Right.
What is your opinion on running deficits just to hand money over to countries, to other countries? Like
that's an easy question. It's crazy. There is no money. There is no money.
That's not even immoral. That's criminal.
Yeah, look. What I'll say to it is that it's crazy. Carney's, even in his own budget, he's talking about scaling back foreign aid. So I think the government has completely lost the argument on it. There is no money for it at all. And look, like, I'm right in downtown Ottawa. I don't know if you guys have been to Ottawa lately, but you have Parliament Hill. It looks all beautiful. 3 blocks away, you can see that we're still dealing with massive challenges in Canada, to the point where it's very, very sad. Right? Like, it's actually depressing to see how many people are going through a very, very difficult time in here. One example I always like to give, because I know it very close to home. You have Canadians who are waiting sometimes years in pain, agony, trying to get a hip replacement, right? And yet the government spent about $7 million on like gender responsive approach to universal healthcare in the Philippines. It really is quite disgusting when you think about it that way.
So very immoral, wrong, and maybe criminal, as Kev puts it out there. Well, Franco, let's let you go, and I'm sorry that you're downtown Ottawa. I feel for you. You should be out here in Alberta.
Well, thanks, guys. Sorry I got to leave, but this was fun.
Yeah, we'll talk again soon. We'll catch up after this is all done. Take care, man.
See you guys.
And have a good evening. Good plans for you. All right, Kris, let's go to you with the same question. Where's Poilievre or the opposition on this? He was a minister, the shadow minister of finance. He should know how this goes. Why is he not being stronger on this?
I see them all voting against it, I assume, today. I was going back because what you said there kind of piqued my interest. I'll put it this way. I haven't watched direct mainstream media in quite a while, in a few years, even though I worked directly in it for a long time, including as a member of the Parliamentary Press Gallery. I don't know why they had that one little game playing there. I see it on iPolitics on why it is that they allowed them to survive one of the confidence votes. So I actually couldn't tell you that one. I know today I just got off the horn with Aaron Gunn, who before he became a member of parliament for Vancouver Island North Powell River, one of my home ridings originally in BC, he of course was the guy who made the documentary Vancouver is Dying. And to Franco's point, there is so much misery and suffering right in front of our eyes from fellow Canadians. And I personally, I really like Aaron, so I'm biased. But I thought he did an amazing job of that documentary. I just finished interviewing him for Juno, and they're all fired up. Like, they're all voting against this. They're all making this a big confidence vote deal. So as to why they let one slip through, looking at that iPolitics article, I actually don't know what that would be. I do know that they campaigned on reducing spending. They campaigned on getting rid of the carbon tax, which we're really happy to see it gone. Maybe not in the form that it was eventually axed, but it was gone. So we were happy there. But to Franco's point, yeah, we would rather the Conservatives campaign on actually balancing the budget, like in dollars and cents, Kevin, not just with how much we're getting taxed and inflated. But we would like to see them campaigning on a balanced budget. I think to play political pundit for a second, I think they were concerned about scaring away like the normie vote and like average working people in the 905. Maybe they were worried about spooking voters with terms like austerity, because that label gets thrown around a lot. So I think that's probably why they were saying we're going to balance the budget, just not in the first couple of years. But hey, at the Taxpayers Federation, Franco just told you how to balance the budget. Like, they should do it next year. They should do it tomorrow.
Kev, you want to comment on that? Where's Poilievre on this one, and can they balance the budget with some of these changes if they took them?
Well, the reason why I believe that Poilievre was as vocal as he could without being, as vocal as he should is because he knew that if he went into an election, you'd probably lose again. And another Conservative loss would mean a leadership review, and he would probably lose his job. So that's what he's probably thinking on the backside, is he doesn't want to go to another election knowing that there is a good chance that he will lose. Because, let's be honest, the election was what, 3, 4, 6 months ago? What has changed? Has the mainstream media changed their stance on the anti-American attacks? No. Has the Elbows Up crowd, changed their views on how they're going to vote? No. Has Elections Canada changed, if they're going to be more transparent? No. So, you're gonna want to trigger an event that will garnish the same results, if not worse. The Liberals could even actually end up with a majority, and that would for sure be the Poilievre's demise. So that's what I think that he was worried about, that maybe he wants to hang on and try to build up more support based on internal polling, and maybe go for an election in 12 to 18 months. But he's probably thinking it's only been 5-6 months. It's not a long enough time to turn the ship around. That's my view.
I don't know.
Kevin, yeah, because I was going to say, Kevin, so basically, I just want to make sure I heard you properly. You're saying that Pierre Poilievre was more concerned about his job than he was about helping Canada. And the other thing I would say is, if we are indeed in this much trouble, because all I'm seeing is trouble, 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 trouble. I don't see anything good coming out of that budget. I really don't care that you're liberal, you're conservative. This should be a nonpartisan issue.
Mhm.
10 years of liberal policies has literally destroyed our economy. 1% growth per GDP over the past 10 years when the US did 20. And we were head to head with the US as soon as Trudeau came in. Boop, it just crumbled. And it's Mark Carney. That was his economic advisor for 5 years behind closed doors. They don't like to talk about that, but that's a fact. So what blows my mind is, again, where's Pierre Poilievre in this? Why is he not just drilling this? That we are not in a good place. And I would also challenge Kevin to say maybe the reason the mainstream media hasn't changed its tune on the US, for example, or changed its tune on Pierre Poilievre is that he's not courageous enough to put it in their faces, because somebody needs to talk about it. I talk about it every day, but I'm not the leader of the Conservative Party. I'm just saying, at one point, when do conservatives need to take responsibility for what's going on? Because we can blame the Liberals all we want, but we have to hold ourselves accountable for saying this still happened under our watch.
Well, let's jump in there, Kris.
A few things. So again, I worked on the Hill for close to 20 years, so I know a lot of the players involved. I don't think it's fair to characterize the Conservatives as not criticizing this budget. As they've, like, every time I've tuned in and listened to them, especially on this side of the fence when it comes to, independent media podcasts, all that jazz, I do still catch clips of them on mainstream media when I bother to watch. They're coming at this pretty hammer and tong. As far as whether or not a conservative would win if we had an election tomorrow, that's so speculative. I mean, I think a lot of us would have guessed a year ago that Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives were about to form a majority government. That's what all the polls were saying. They were riding high in it for a year. And then all of a sudden, Trump happened, right? He opened his mouth. He made a joke about the 51st state. Mainstream media goes crazy. Everybody gets distracted and they go into an election, which is what occurred. And they also wound up going up against a guy who looked new. It was Carney. It wasn't Trudeau. So a lot of sand under everybody's feet suddenly shifted very quickly. As far as if there were an election held today, that's why I jumped in with I don't know, because the metrics haven't changed for normal working people. If anything, they've gotten worse, right? Look at what's happened with the steel mills getting shut down in Ontario, the auto manufacturing jobs getting lost. And I think now, the longer that Carney goes on the record making the wrong decisions, if he starts making right ones, I'll be the first one to say that's a good thing. But so far, he's making wrong ones. If you let the record start speaking for itself, you start asking the question of, okay, what's happened between April and now? Has Trump invaded? No. What has occurred? Exactly nothing, actually, because Carney has failed to get a trade deal. And what's weird is that Trump has signed trade deals with other countries. So if he were
27.
suddenly blasting everybody else and refusing to sign any deals with any other country ever, you could make the argument, well, it's that guy's problem. It's that guy in DC. Nope, he's signing trade deals with other countries. He's dropping tariffs and doing deals with other countries. So what's the problem with Canada? Again, I would argue that it's our own management. It is the current government's management. And it's not just the elected Liberals. It's the permanent government. It's the bureaucracy. You guys would puke if you looked at how much some of these bureaucrats are paid. I'm talking $300,000 a year each, and it's their job to manage relations with the United States. They're doing a terrible job. So I don't know. The consistent messaging I'm seeing currently from the opposition is that they don't like this budget. They want them to rein in spending.
Well, can I kind of put you a little bit back on that one, Nico? So, Kris, here's where I think we would like to see a little bit more push. Pierre coming out and say, this is a horrible budget. We can't afford it. We need an election. We need to change leadership, and only we can fix it. If he came out with like a message like that, I think it would be a little bit easier to swallow.
Okay.
But currently, he's saying no election, and we just want an affordable budget. He's basically calling against an election, which means Mark Carney has no threat. no push.
Okay.
I think that's where some of us are looking. Like if he came out and said, "This is so horrible. We're demanding an election. Canadians need new
Exactly.
leadership, and we're the new leadership," then we can, get behind that. But he's pretty soft on that kind of messaging at this
Oh,
stage.
okay. Fair enough. Like I don't watch the shows anymore. I watch us. Like I watch podcasts.
Yeah.
I watch independent media. But I don't watch the 5 o'clock shows anymore. So if that messaging has been soft, I don't know, man. Like I
And-
think I'm still
and-
hearing from normal people all the time who are sick to death about not being able to afford stuff. And also this is outside of taxpayers' wheelhouse, but the crime, man. The problems that people are having in their day-to-day lives, the affordability element combined with crime, like that hasn't changed. It hasn't gotten better. So I don't know. I think the factors would still be the same going into another election, but I know. Call me an all crazy
Well,
Albertan.
there's actually a few more low-hanging fruit, like you laid out. No deal with Trump, he could hit that pretty hard. Crime going up, he can hit that pretty hard. Groceries going up, he can hit that pretty hard. But
Mm.
he's not. So, Kev, let's jump to you on this one because you kind of pay attention to some of this. Is Carney not Carney, but is Pierre not hitting hard enough?
Well, Pierre Poilievre, to me, like, I don't know how many people that listen to you are, conservatives, but he was always a person that was a follower, like never really a leader, right? He would be the one that would look at internal polling and see what people were saying before he would, base an opinion and come out on a stance. We can go all the way back to, COVID with vaccines. He criticized Justin Trudeau on not bringing vaccines out fast enough, not closing the borders out fast enough. He aligned himself with the, attacking the United States with dollar-to-dollar tariffs. So, on the big things, on the things that I see as important, and some things that you should take a stand on, he generally tends to go with with the uniparty, and on other things that he generally waits and sees what happens before he comes out and speaks about it, or he doesn't say anything at all. And that's why I believe that he's more of a follower other than a leader, and he's listening to people in his inner circle that are telling him what to do. And if you take a look at Donald Trump, nobody tells Donald Trump what to do, right? He goes and he just runs his mouth. Pierre Poilievre, he's not really like that. In my opinion, I could be completely wrong. That's generally my impression of him, is that his inner circle is very tight knit and controlled, and whoever's giving him this advice is giving him wrong advice. And that's why to point out, the CPC has drifted so far to the left over this last decade, 2 decades, that it's actually a left of center party. So there's no real opposition. There's just controlled opposition or perceived controlled opposition. There's no real opposition party in the House of Commons that can stand up and say all these things from a right-wing party. There's only variances of left-wing parties. We have like a left-wing CPC, we have a farther left Liberal, and then we have an extreme left NDP, and then we have Elizabeth May. We don't even know where she stands. She came out and changed her mind on the vote today and said that all these excuses. Yeah, I'm going to vote yes because now is not the time for the election. So maybe we should deport Elizabeth May back to the United States. But that's getting off tangent here. But yeah, Pierre Poilievre, he is, if you want to bring the party back, you need to actually bring in a conservative or a libertarian, and somebody that has those conservative libertarian values. Pierre Poilievre is not that guy.
So, Nico, if Pierre came out and said, "We're demanding an election, this budget is extreme, it's really bad, we're in rough shape, we need new leadership," would you feel different?
No, because he had the opportunity to do it. To me, it's all talk. And that's the problem that I've seen with Pierre Poilievre. I know a lot of people that know him behind closed doors, and he stands for the stuff that I believe in. Like, sorry to say this, but like, women don't have penises. One of the biggest issue, one of the simplest issue that we can address right now. Supposedly behind closed doors, he doesn't believe that women can have penises, but he won't address that publicly. And that's always the problem that I have with him. Is it's one thing to stand for something behind closed doors. It does not matter if you don't do it publicly, especially as a politician. Because the way I look at this is, look at what Carney is doing right now. He said publicly that if your MP is not a liberal, call him, tell him to join our liberal. So he is basically trying to get a majority, which is 2 seats away now that Entremont joined him. He's 2 seats away from a majority without an election. Pierre Poilievre had the opportunity to call out an election 2 Fridays ago, and he didn't take it. That opportunity is gone. We're not going to see an election today. Come on. Even as Kevin is saying, what's her name? Elizabeth May just said that she will vote for it. So we're screwed. No matter what he needs, every single person to vote against it in order for that budget not to pass. So no matter how we look at it, that budget is going to pass today.
And I believe 2 NDPs are abstaining, so that's automatic pass.
Yeah, a bunch of them, like the interim leader said that he said it that chances are he's gonna abstain too. So, but the point I'm making is that no matter how we look at it, it's just a matter of time before the Liberals get a majority, because they're gonna steal. I like to call it stealing, because to me that's exactly what Mark Carney is doing. It's something that's never happened in Canadian history. We've had people walk the floor and go to the other side, but never giving a majority to a government without gaining it through an election. So that's why, to me, what he did 2 weeks ago is too little too late. Like, you can vote against it today, but it doesn't change anything. You don't have the vote to turn it down to bring an election. I just see it as, I don't believe it's a missed opportunity. To me, it's controlled opposition. Kevin used the word, the expression controlled opposition. That's exactly how I see it. And how they acted 2 weeks ago is exactly kind of proving that point. Because no matter what, no matter how I look at it, the Liberals will have, within the next year, they will have a majority that will have come without an election. We're looking at 2.5 years before an election. They're not going to ask for an election if they have a majority government. So this was, to me, the last chance we had, because it's never going to produce itself again over the next 3 years.
So, Kris, what's going on with the CPC? So we had the Nova Scotia crisscross. He crossed the floor. In Edmonton, we have an MP who's resigning. And news came out today, a couple of reports came out today that 2 CPC MPs decided not to cross the floor. They don't want to be looked at as traitors for the rest of their lives. What's going on there? Is that a internal confidence issue? Or what do you think is going on there?
So just in my experience, taking off my Taxpayer Federation hat, my experience is that after an election, this stuff kind of shakes out. Okay. And especially leading up to things like budget votes and confidence votes, these things do shake out back and forth, meaning you do get some floor crossings, that this has happened before. I was working on Parliament Hill. I was in the mainstream media back when Belinda Stronach very famously crossed the floor and joined the Liberals. And then she supported them in their budget vote, in their confidence vote. And a gentleman who is now passed and no longer with us, a very good gentleman named Chuck Cadman. Folks might remember him. He was a Reform Member of Parliament and then Canadian Alliance and eventually Conservative. He was really there for one issue, and that was criminal justice reform, because his son was murdered by a repeat offender. And I remember distinctly him standing up and voting in favor of the budget. So this is all to say that we do see some drama on Parliament Hill from time to time. Usually it's around just after an election, okay, where people don't get the appointments that they may or may not want, no matter what the party is, and 2, up to and around a budget vote, a confidence vote. So what happens is, as people are on the horn back and forth, the government whip, government house leader, they're trying to bend each other's ears back and forth. They're trying to get more support in order to shore up their budget. As the Taxpayers Federation goes, we are big fans of having recall legislation. So here in Alberta, for folks who do live here, aren't we lucky? We have recall legislation at the provincial, municipal, so at the city hall, and actually at the school board level. It's a pretty good tool for democracy. And at the very least, we think that there should be recall legislation available to folks in the federal level, because what that would do is it would force a by-election. And that way, the folks in Wolfville and surrounding the Acadie University that's right there, those voters would have a chance to say yes or no to this floor crossing, because so quickly after especially so quickly after a vote, after a big general election, I imagine there's a lot of people there who are pretty upset, who don't feel represented. So at the very least, having that tool for democracy, having a recall legislation mechanism at the federal level, that would automatically trigger a by-election if they got enough signatures. So that's probably the right thing to do here. I did want to say, like, again, a lot of this I think is a lot of distraction. Like, the numbers were always there for Carney to have this pass. The NDP, like, it doesn't have a leader. Like, who would be on the leaders debate stage? Whose face and name would have been on their campaign lit? Like, I was born in the morning. I wasn't born this morning. Like, the NDP was not voting to go to an election. It just wasn't in the cards.
Yeah, absolutely. I saw that one coming up from a mile away. They wouldn't
Yeah.
survive another election. Liberal will probably focus on where their seats are to try and get them. And I see that you have to run shortly. So let me kind of just ask a final question here for you. I know you don't like spending tax money, but the major projects list came out. Alberta's not on it. And then during the budget announcement on November 4th, they didn't talk about energy and prosperity in Alberta at all. Are you seeing that as kind of a little bit of payback for Danielle Smith standing up to Carney, or they just really don't care about Alberta and they're really showing it at this stage?
It's unfortunately both. So I'm a transplanted Albertan. I'm so glad that my family was able to flee here in 2022. It's a wonderful province. How do I put this? Okay, this is multifaceted. A, Smith is doing the smart thing by calling Carney's bluff and saying essentially, okay, you have this fancy, what is it called? National Projects Office or Nation Building Office, whatever. They always put some sort of fancy title around it. But the problem, of course, is that we have been a scarecrow for private investment now for 10 years. Like, businessmen would not leave their wallet on our park bench, okay, in Canada, because
Especially on Lethbridge.
that's because we've been killing, because we've been killing investment, right? We've been killing investment. We've been shutting down pipelines. We've been blocking mines, okay? We've been saying no, no, no all the time. And so, of course, when a major project is offered, there's no takers because investors don't want to see their money get wasted. They want a sure thing. So Smith was smart in saying, all right, I'm going to call your bluff. Alberta, the province, is going to be the applicant to your magical nation building office. And what that will do is two things. A, she has promised to not spend taxpayers' money to build a pipeline. We've already done that before. We don't want to do it again. But B, government usually deals with consultation and paperwork and all the other hoop jumping nonsense. That's what she's taking on, is the hoop jumping and the box checking and the consultation. So she was smart to call his bluff there. So they don't have all their ducks in a row right now. They haven't made the formal application. They haven't finished the consultation with different groups that would be in a Northern Gateway pipeline route. So it wasn't there to approve anyway. See where this is going? But I think there's a bit of silly nonsense going on here. Personally, I don't think Carney's going to be approving big natural resources projects, especially for Alberta. That includes things like natural gas, oil sands, and mining. And the reason for that is a few 100 pages long, and it's this book.
Yeah.
So anyone who's read this book, Values by Mark Carney, he wrote it when he was the UN special envoy to blah, blah, blah. Okay.
Climate change.
Yeah. It was endorsed by Bono. Okay. He quotes Greta Thunberg in this earnestly, out loud, repeatedly. Okay. It is chock full of calling things like natural gas plants and pipelines stranded assets. Like, there's a lot in here. And so I don't want Alberta to be led down the garden path any longer. I'm seeing a lot of warning signs here. I'm hearing two things. From the business community, I'm hearing, we're not putting our money in there until you guys give us some guarantees. Internationally, no way, Jose. And second, I'm getting bad signals coming from Ottawa. In that budget, that mess of 490 something pages, it included talking about a big, strong industrial carbon tax. That is the wrong way to go. I feel you guys watch Peanuts. Remember when Lucy's holding the football? Yeah. Yep. I feel like it's just Carney holding the football now. And we're going to kick and we're going to land on her back. So I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm being pessimistic. But I'm worried that Alberta's getting played. And we just had a deadline go by. Grey Cup, remember? Was the deadline.
Yep.
So
They actually brought up having a strong industrial carbon tax in the House today, and I think it was methane or some other gas emissions caps being, a focal point of their budget. They
yep.
actually, said that, and they said, "Oh, don't worry, it's not going to, increase costs for Canadians." Just like they said for 2 years that 8 out of 10 Canadians get more money back than what they pay in the tax. So.
Yeah, remember that? How the carbon tax made us all richer magically?
The carbon not only did the carbon tax make us richer, but removing the carbon tax made us even richer.
I can't even. I follow
Uh,
you on X, Kev, and one of my favorite things is actually your top line photo where you just have like the clown symbol over top of the earth for Clown World, and it's seriously, it's moments like that where you're like, tell me more about how a tax makes me richer. Like even saying it out loud, it's hard to keep a straight face. I'll leave you with a few things here. Remember when Trudeau? It feels like about a year ago now. Remember when Trudeau flew down to Brazil to some Up With People conference thing? And he said, seriously, that Canadians should prioritize paying his carbon tax over top of paying for their kids' food and paying for rent.
Yep,
He
I
said
remember that. Yep.
Remember when he also said, "Oh, the only people who truly feel the cost of the carbon tax are people with big houses and indoor swimming pools and 3 personal cars?" Describing his
Oh, boy.
childhood, like literally describing his childhood at 24 Sussex. And then, amazing, a miracle happened. Trudeau steps down, new guy comes in, and all of a sudden, we had Liberal MPs standing at gas stations talking about scrapping the carbon tax. Like, hallelujah, it finally occurred. And I think this is what Franco was getting at here, of nothing happens, and suddenly it does. We have
It's when the
got
dam
to,
breaks.
that's right. So we have got to use that to our advantage here. We have got to make that wake up call happen for things. I'm serious, like the debt, like more than $50 billion a year, more than $1 billion a week. I'll put it this way. Burned, that hospital he described, it takes $1 billion to build a hospital, brand new shiny paint. Imagine building one every single week and all of Canada gathers around the television set. Instead of Hockey Night in Canada, we burn down a hospital. We don't put doctors and nurses in it. No. We build it, we pay for it, and then we burn it to the ground before we can move anybody in. That's how much we're wasting on debt interest. So this is what we're trying to get through to people here. This is as urgent as it was with the carbon tax. They've got to get them fighting the debt and to stop their overspending. And Jason, I just wanted to point out, when Franco figured out that stat on we are spending around twice as much on foreign aid than we are in Veterans Affairs, like he stunned me. He figured that out about a year ago. Like it moved me to tears. And I'm sorry. We should not be doing that. It is wrong. And so I really thank you guys for taking on kind of the moral fight of this fiscal imbalance. We appreciate it.
And
And don't forget this budget as demanding $4.3 billion less spending on veterans. So they want to do even less. Okay. They were asking them to go ahead and find some savings.
But more money for CBC and more money because we have to go
Yep.
find Eurovision, whatever the hell that is.
Yeah. And more money for NATO as well, meeting that obligation too. And yeah, that's all
I'm sorry,
backwards.
man. We're in a fight.
And thank you
This is a fight.
for highlighting that book of Carney's. He would have to throw that book out and burn it in the oil sands for him to do anything different. I don't think he's going to be doing that anytime soon. And he has talked about if Alberta's willing to do carbon capture, then maybe there's something that can be done.
I think it's a trick. I think that's a trick. I know that there are a lot of people who love carbon capture. I'm a Star Trek girl. Like, if we could run on dilithium crystals, I'd be super happy about it. But I hear so much about carbon capture being the way. And then I hear big industry saying, oh, well, it's just going to be a closed circuit, industrial carbon tax. It's not costing taxpayers money. Like, that quickly turns into excuses for not actually producing energy and also a form of corporate welfare. And I'm worried that they're relying too much on let's do carbon capture while we hand you a huge industrial carbon tax and we keep your emissions cap on. I hope I'm wrong. I
Well,
really hope I'm wrong.
you just have to look at who's getting the contracts for these carbon capture, deals, and they probably, you can probably follow the money all the way back to Brookfield.
They do.
I can
I've
guarantee
spoken
that
about this. Brookfield bought a company for 20 billion or something like that in 2022 that does carbon capture.
It's Atrophy. I think the name is the company is Atrophy.
The
And
Atrophy is who he's selling right now, as in is going to take care of it. He didn't bring up the company that Brookfield owns. He brought up another company, but it turns out that they do own a company. I'm looking for the name right now because I've spoken about this before, but they are well invested in carbon capturing. And if you've ever looked, go on Entropy's website, they're going to show you how carbon is captured. It's so much bullshit. It is literally, hey, look at my hand here, but don't look at what this hand is doing. It's nothing. And it doesn't beat Carney going on camera saying that putting an industrial carbon tax on steel is somehow going to make us more competitive than our Americans and international competitors. And there's people on my X right now calling me names saying, you don't understand how that works. I'm like, hey, you cannot tax something while making it cheaper. Like, this is a fallacy. It does not work that way. This is very, if we can't argue on this, enjoy the rest of your day, because we can't have a civil discussion. We can't have an intelligent conversation. Like, are you kidding me? You pay more tax, but somehow you'll make more money at the end of the year.
You know what? This entire climate change argument should have ended with COP30 when they bulldozed thousands of acres of Amazon rainforest to build a superhighway to fly people from all over the world in their fancy jets to come and lecture us about using, how climate change is going to destroy us all. That is peak hypocrisy right there. At that point, even the most, I'm not going to say the R word, but, NPCer should have figured out that, this is a giant scam. That's all it is.
Greta Thunberg stopped talking about climate change 2 years ago. Yeah. Bill Gates just came out to say, oh, yeah, well, it's not working out, so let's change the narrative. Mark Carney, in his book Value, that I also read, unfortunately, or fortunately, says it. It's all about money. He got caught on camera. He got caught admitting that this is a great way to make money. I have that video going viral on Instagram and on X. People finger up their noses. Yep, no, that's okay. We need to fight. We need to fight the climate.
And what that means.
Well,
let's let
Kris run, and then we'll continue this conversation because she's got to run.
Kris, before you go, I just wanted to throw out an interesting stat for you that you might find, helpful. We're talking about the interest on the national debt. Mm-hmm. Since 1980, we've paid $1.4 trillion in interest on the national debt. Their national debt is $1.3 trillion. We've actually paid more in interest to service our debt than what the national debt is.
That is disgusting. Doesn't surprise me. To put that into perspective, $1 trillion is so big. It's a 1 with 12 zeros after it.
It's 1,000 billion, right?
Yeah, it's 1,000 billion. If you started counting right now, okay, I think we're all kind of the same vintage-ish. Imagine Scrooge McDuck like diving through his vault full of money, right? If you started counting right now, it would take you 30,000 years to count to 1 trillion. That's how big that number is. And I'll leave you guys with this, to the point on the carbon tax and the whole climate change thing. Even if you wanted to make the argument, say that global emissions, are what keeps you up at night, okay, gets you out of bed in the morning, all right? It would, see, for argument's sake, this is where you just beat them at their own tennis match, okay? Okay, if Canada ceased to exist, God forbid, it would not make a dent in global emissions. Period. Okay? Doesn't matter if we cease to exist or we're all driving Toyota Priuses or whatnot. Okay? It wouldn't make a dent. Why? Because we're responsible for less than 2% of global emissions. The smart thing to do is to tackle the big end of the arithmetic problem and sell cleaner energy like natural gas to places like India. India, where 200 to 300 million people are burning wood, garbage, and animal dung every single day. So they've got really high emissions and terrible indoor air quality, by the way, which largely affects women and children whose job it is to go gather all the wood and the garbage every single morning so they can heat and eat. Guess what? That government has been asking us for more than 10 years to sell them natural gas. It's literally in their government plans in India, but there's apparently no business case for it. I will leave you with this point, and it makes me sick. I went back through the budgets to when we first got the federal carbon tax imposed upon us by then Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. And I counted up how much money had been taken from Canadians in his carbon tax. More than $45 billion. It's gone. Nobody's talking about it except for us, but $45 billion gone out of taxpayers' wallets.
Yeah,
Canada may have 2% of the emissions, but we also have some of the largest carbon captures in the world. It's called forests.
Trees?
And we have lots of those trees.
Yeah, one thing that I've learned is, this government, or the people that support it, they would rather look like they're doing the right thing than actually do the right thing. So by having this carbon tax, they can sit back and virtue signal and say, oh, we're doing this, we're doing that, we're helping the environment, we're sending a message. Meanwhile, you're not doing anything at all. So all they're doing is look like they're doing the right thing, and that makes them feel like a good person. That's all it is.
Yeah, it's a combination of a sin tax and virtue signaling. And I think that's why it took hold. And I love British Columbia. I'm from there. I grew up in Hope, where Rambo was filmed. And I think one of the reasons why it took hold so long, so hard there, is that honestly, British Columbia is so beautiful. I think people started feeling guilty for living in a beautiful place. And they have to pay this I don't know, indulgence tax or something. And at the end of the day, all it did was make people poorer. And it didn't help the environment one bit. It didn't do squat for lowering global emissions. If we really wanted to do that, they would actually need adults in the room and figure out how to do that, like selling, like I said, natural gas to places like India. But again, we are $45 billion out from start to finish, clock to clock, of the consumer carbon tax. And I wanted to warn people that Carney is changing his industrial carbon tax. And he campaigned on this, so we can't say that he's surprising us with it. He's making it bigger and stronger. And he also has promised to bring in carbon tax tariffs. So folks might remember that he called them border adjustment mechanisms. Those are tariffs. And that is because, of course, this Mark Carney looks around the world. And he just said this in February. So I'm not picking on an old book or something. But back in February, he said that he wants border adjustment mechanisms. And if you read this book, you'll understand why. Because if Carney looks around the world and he finds a country that doesn't have a carbon tax nationally, it upsets him. It upsets him so much that when we take something in from that country, import something into Canada, he wants to hit them and punish them with his own carbon tax. And that's going to be a carbon tax tariff. So those are coming too.
And we all know that the Canadians will pay the tariff.
That's right, because we're paying for the higher price on the item. Tariffs are just trade taxes. That's all they are. So if we slap a tariff on something coming in from the United States, for example, which does not have a national carbon tax. In fact, Bush, Clinton, Bush, Obama, Trump, Biden, and now Trump, all of those presidents said no to carbon taxes, all the way back to the original Earth Summit in Rio, to the original Bush. Okay, so it crosses all party lines. So that kind of thinking is, if you have something come into Canada that's from the United States and we impose a tariff on that thing, Canadians, you and I at the store, pay more for it. That's all that does. Tariffs just hurt normal working people on both sides of the border because they're just taxes. So.
Thank you, Kris, very much for the work you're doing with the Canadian Taxpayer Foundation or Federation, right? And thank you for joining Alberta. We just got one person stronger, so I really appreciate you being here. And thanks for taking the time today to explain some of this
Alberta.
to us.
Thank you so much, guys. Bye-bye.
Yeah, we'll have you back. She gone. Okay, well, we can continue a bit more. Nico, I noticed that you have the video queued up there of what's going on. And the vote's not supposed to happen again for another 30 minutes or so, I think.
Yeah, that's what I was hearing. That's what I was seeing this morning, 6:15, no later, is what they were saying. I'm keeping my eye on it to make sure, but right now they're just babbling. They're just talking to each other, making it look like it's not breads in circuses for the masses.
Okay,
But we
no,
already
fair
know,
enough.
we already
So
know we
we'll
already know
stick
the
around.
result though.
What's that, Kev?
We already know the results. It's gonna pass.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because we got the 2 abstain from the NDP, we got the 1 from the Green, and then all the Liberals. So that's enough to get it done, right?
Yep. The
Okay.
whole thing was a show. It was a movie. We're watching a movie. We have been for years. This is all theater, right?
Yep.
It's all theater. You know, I don't know who said it, but you know, somebody said it that politicians are just, you know, dumb actors that are too ugly to make it in Hollywood, and you know, that's exactly what we have. Just a bunch of dumb, ugly actors.
Well, you can take the credit for that one, for that quote, and we'll get it out there. But Nico, well, when we did our Saturday show with Stockwell Day and the rest of the panel, nobody believed there was going to be election then either for political reasons. And now that we got a little bit more breakdown here, what's happening, I guess there's no surprises for you then.
No, there's no surprises for me. I'm just very disappointed in Canadian as a whole. I just cannot believe that we're still believing this lie. This is what blows my mind the most. Like, I don't understand what it's going to take for the conservative people out there to wake up to the fact that Pierre Poilievre isn't a conservative, that he had all the chances in the world to become PM if he really wanted to. He chose not to. He had the chance to call an election 2 weeks ago. He chose not to. I don't know how much suffering Canadians will have to go through before they wake up. Because, Kevin, you talked about that earlier, and I talk about this on my show all the time, that it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better because people are not hurting enough. They're not hurting enough right
It
now.
has to.
Not
It
enough.
literally has
Yep.
to. It's the
It's
only.
just
It's like I always tell people. It's like a child learning how to ride a bike, and right now we're like so focused on not letting the child fall off the bike and hurt himself. But that's exactly what has to happen. That child has to fall. He has to smash his face, and learn from the experience, and then get back on the bike. So and that is the actual pain that we have. We haven't fallen off the bike yet. We haven't learned about all of these reckless deficits and what they cause. Some of us have. The people that can barely afford to eat, they're learning, but there's a large percentage of people, and it's the the boomer generation that benefited from this, that have kind of stuck the younger generations with the bill, and that's why my generation, the millennials, and the generations that are coming after me, they're going to be a lot more upset, and that is where the change is going to happen. So yes, things have to get worse. So the only way to get through this, is to accelerate. And people are saying, "Oh, you don't want a conservative government." And I say, "Okay, what would happen with a conservative government? Maybe we'll pump the brakes a little bit, we'll slow down a little bit, but the trajectory of the car is still going off the cliff." So it might take 3, 4, 5 more years, maybe 10 more years. That's like, pulling a band-aid off as slowly as possible. It's going to inflict even more pain. So, what we want is the most amount of pain in the fastest period of time, so that the masses can wake up. And that's the only thing that will actually cause this ship to do a radical 180-degree change. Other than that, we're just slowly drifting down the same path.
So, Kevin, what were your thoughts about Franco's 4 items? So, cutting MP pay, cutting the bureaucracy, cutting the corporate welfare, and then cutting foreign aid. Is that enough in your mind to reverse this ship?
Well, that would start, and then I would take an axe to social services. Like our public health care. How much the federal government transfers in money is it's tens of billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars. That's one of the largest line items. So social programs, need to be cut back substantially. But then, liberals will never do that because it's their core base that are benefiting from all these social programs. So if you cut those back, you're going to lose your base. And then you're going to have people on the media and the unions screaming, the sky is falling, this and that. Canadians are paying these taxes and they're losing their services. But that's it needs to. We can't have a government that offers Canadians the world from from cradle to grave, and that is the environment that this government is trying to create. Daycare services, school food programs, dental care, universal health care. All of these programs, they come at a cost. And I think it was Thomas Sowell that said that the welfare state is the greatest con game in the world. First you take people's tax quietly, and then you give it back, some of it back to them flamboyantly. And that's what all these programs are. They're a flamboyant way of giving people back a portion of the money that was stolen, right? So yes, we have to cut the bureaucracy. I think that easily you could cut 80% of the government, the public sector. Easily there's 400 and some odd thousand, maybe 350, 400,000 federal public sector workers. You can cut that back by 80%. And I think that, yes, they need to have a serious pay reduction. I think that MP should get paid the median wage of what the riding is. So like, they're the second highest paid MPs in the world. Exorbitant. That needs to change. And yeah, stop foreign aid. Those items that he pointed out, as long with cutting back all these social services, you'd be able to not only balance the books, you'd be able to have not a deficit, but forgetting the word
Surplus.
here. Surplus. Thank you. And you'd actually be able to cut taxes.
Surplus.
Yeah, that word is so unused lately that people forget it now. It's so unused, you just slipped your mind. Now, when you're talking about that, all that came to my mind was, well, the Senate just put into a committee Bill 206, which is basically universal basic
UBI.
income. So they're going in the wrong direction. Absolutely. And Kev, you had a great post the other day. Carney's bragging about getting back Canadians to $3,500 over 5 years. And then you highlighted the average Canadian pays $15,000 in taxes. So that's $75,000 over 5 years to get back $3,500. And that's kind of what you're talking about here. You tax, give back a little bit, and it's enough to distract. So what are your thoughts about universal basic income? It's in committee now. Second reading's done.
What are my thoughts about it? Obviously,
Mhm.
I'm hardcore against it, and anybody who thinks that they're just going to get free money from the government and it's not going to come with strings attached is delusional. Because it's going to be slipped in with digital IDs. It's going to be slipped in with CBDCs down the road. It's going to be slipped in with individual carbon trackers, individual carbon credits. It's going to be slipped in with a social credit system. So this is just this UBI or whatnot, it's the camel's nose under the tent, right? And then after a couple of years go by, and then the room is full of camels and the whole place stinks. So that is my view on it. It's just another way of pushing forward Agenda 30, Agenda 50 into this totalitarian, authoritarian control and the systematic destruction of the middle class.
And what I think Canadians should be paying attention to, because we laugh at it, but this EBT program, SNAP benefits down in the US, yeah, we can laugh at it, but pay close attention to what they're actually doing with it. They're able to say you can't buy certain items with it. That's exactly what the UBI is going to do as well. They'll use social credit scoring, they'll use carbon tax, or you'll use other tracking programs to tell you what you can and can't buy. For example, you probably won't be able to buy fresh meat, but you buy cloned meat. Those kind of things will be dictated to you right at the till if you're going to be using this money. And it's going to be central bank digital currency that's distributing it and tracking it all. That's my concern. That's exactly where I think they're going to go with this. And then
Just
there's
look at the
also the
UK.
falling off the cliff. Like that's going to put us into bankruptcy. We can't afford this. Go ahead,
The
Nico.
UK is already talking about it, but the UK is already talking about it. Like they're talking about digital ID by the end of his term, which is 2029. You will need it to work, and they're already talking about carbon credits. So they will tell you, oh, you know what? You bought too much meat this week. No more meat for you. You still have money, but you cannot buy certain items. You remember COVID? When you had, not only did you have to follow the arrow like a dumbass, but there were certain things behind on the shelves that were barricaded, like they'd have
Yeah.
tape on it. You can buy this, but you can't buy this. That was just a test. They put in CERB in order to have people stay home, drink alcohol, smoke weed, watch CBC, play video games. They did it for a while. They prevented them from buying what they wanted, just to test. And our dumbasses went for it. And now, as you said, Bill 206, S206 have been passed second reading, and soon is going to be in the House of Commons. I don't know that it's that one is going to pass, but the plan is there. Just the fact that they're trying to put it out there is problematic. You know that it's coming, and I agree with you, Kevin, 100%. They will sell that as the digital ID that's been developed for years already. They tried to pass that during COVID. It didn't work. Like, they wanted to have an international digital ID that would show your vaccination status so that you could travel easier, so people could know that you were part of the gang. And it never came to fruition. Like, we didn't see it, but it's been developed they've been working on it for a long time. And there were mention that it was actually in the budget. I've heard some rumors that throughout the 500 pages of this beautiful budget here that they do mention digital ID. And I don't know if you saw that, Kevin, but they were talking about it, I think last week, that welfare recipients might be required to sign up for a digital ID in order to continue receiving their money. So this is something that's already happening right now as we speak. So it's not, even Daniel Smith in Alberta talked about a digital ID. I don't care what you say. Oh yeah, but it makes, no, fuck you. It doesn't make things simpler. This is all about control. I don't care who that is. I don't want a digital ID. And even if you agreed, even if you're not a conspiracy theorist, I can tell you from a guy that came from the telecommunication world, governments cannot secure your information. Stop lying to yourself. They are terrible at preventing people from accessing their servers. So even if you believe that the digital ID is a good idea, your information is going to end up on the web because they're not able to secure servers. They just can't.
There are very, very few things that digital ID could be used as a benefit, and there are an exorbitant amount of horrible things that it could be used to bring in tyranny. So, the risk reward is not really there, and that's something that I found out during COVID is, people don't have really good risk assessment skills. That's why they were wearing masks and taking vaccines for a non-existent threat.
The digital ID is the equivalent of communism. Sounds great on paper, but people forget that it's run by humans, and humans are corruptible, and they like power. Communism sounds awesome on paper. It ain't. Why do you think it's killed more than 100 million people over the past 100 years, 130 years?
And that's why capitalism is the best system we got, because it tries to factor in human greed.
Exactly. It's the best of the worst that we got. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was talking with Dr. Hodgkinson yesterday about digitizing like a whole bunch of things, and he reminded everybody at the table that we're chatting at that when they digitized healthcare, it sounded like a good idea. It was supposed to make things more efficient, but it turned doctors and nurses into data entry clerks. And then when the systems went down, like we saw in the UK with the wannabe virus, when the systems went down, healthcare stopped. There was no paper backup. So he reminded us all about the concerns about that. He goes, you got to go back to paper if you want to actually have a secure system. There is no other way to do it. And they spend so much time doing data entry that they're not caring for patients. So there's rarely a magic bullet here. So we're getting, 15 minutes towards this vote?
I remember back in, I think it was 2001 or 2002, somewhere around there, where we had a massive blackout. In Eastern Canada, Eastern United States. I think we were out of power for like 2-3 days. How would all your digital systems work when you have, you guys just had a pretty pretty crazy light show, Northern Lights up in Alberta, right? Something about a CME coming, coronal mass ejection, coming out and making a fantastic light show. What happened if a CME came out and hit and took out our power grid when everything's digital? That's the quickest way to take us back to the Stone Age.
They don't even need that. It's called a virus. They don't even need to. They can fake an attack, but they can
For sure.
easily. They will fake the attack and take it away from you. Man, it's the same thing. Just look at something as simple as electric cars. The fact that people are going for this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. You're in Canada. You're in Canada.
But the only reason they're going for it is because they get government subsidies. Take a look at Quebec. You have to look at Quebec and what Quebec is doing. They have one of the highest uptick in electric vehicles, and they're the biggest grifters and scammers. Everybody knows this. I'm from Quebec. I'm from Quebec. I can bash them. Okay, don't worry. Like, I know how they think. The one question every Quebecer asks himself is, how is this going to benefit me? And if it benefits me, they're going to do it. So the only reason why they're doing it is because they know the government's going to give them money.
Bro, I'm from
Montreal,
so I'm there right now. So yes, and yes. That's it. That's all I gotta say. You're absolutely right. I know what you're saying. Yeah.
Okay, and some more of the things that I was kind of concerned about with this budget is there's a lot of people pushing back. Like I'm just highlighting some of the concerns that we all talked about here today with the Canadian Taxpayer Federation as well, confirmed some of these are problems. But a lot of these elbow up people, they think it's a fantastic budget. They think it's a great budget. And one of the things that Franco mentioned was there was a whole group of people that were pleased that this money guy was going to become our prime minister to take care of us. And they still believe that. They still actually believe that after almost a year of him being around, 8 months of him being in power, they think he's doing a great job. But as you heard on this show many times, we are worse off than we were in April. We have no trade agreement with the U.S. anymore. That's falling apart. We're looking at Europe agreements. We're looking at Asia agreements, and we're not opening up energy. So we're worse off, but there's still a huge population out there that's very happy right now. And it's very concerning to me. So is there a way to wake them up, Kev? You kept saying a few times, it's got to get tougher first. You got to rip that Band-Aid off. It's got to have a lot of pain quickly. Well, this government's not going to do that. They're going to slow roll us over the cliff. So what else can we do to try and reach these people?
Well, Yuri Bezmenov said that, there comes to be a point where these people cannot be reached. You have to educate an entirely new generation of, like-minded people. So that, I think that he was right on that, Canada's been demoralized to a point where there's no amount of facts and data, objective facts and data that you can shower with these people for them to get them to change their minds, because they are unable to, they've been programmed to react in a certain way, and you cannot change their minds with logic and facts. So it's impossible. And, one of the things that I always recommend is, one of the books that people should read is, I believe it's Confessions of an Economic Hitman, where they basically say the goal is to go into countries, bury them in debt to the point where they default on their debt, and then you take control of all the assets in the country. Mm-hmm. That's what the United States has been doing in Africa and in Asia for a very long time. South America, that's their play, right? And if you take a look at what Mark Carney is doing and what the Liberals have been done, and basically what this government has been doing for a very long time, it's the exact same thing. You being buried in debt to the point where either our currency collapses, it goes to zero, like a hyperinflationary scenario, like in Zimbabwe or Weimar Republic, or you default on the debt, and then you have a mass liquidation of the assets. So those are the only two ways that this plays out.
And that's what I was getting at with Franco. Yeah, that's what I was getting to with Franco. He doesn't seem to think we're close to that, but that's exactly what they did to Greece. And the IMF came in and controlled all their resources, taxes, policies, destroyed and through austerity measures, quite a few things, and they're just getting out of it now. Is that what they're trying to do here with Canada, Australia, UK, and other Western countries?
I believe so. And if you take a look at their solution, it's ludicrous. So we have a debt problem, and then the IMF says, "Hey, we're going to help you by giving you
that.
more debt." It's insane. It's absolutely insane. And the IMF is, some of the architect of this. The IMF and the BIS, the Bank of International Settlements. I think they get together in their ivory towers and laugh about how dumb we are for not seeing this very blatant plan. Is we're gonna basically crash your ship into an iceberg, and then we're going to save you when you're in the water by throwing you a cinder block.
No, I like that analogy, and yeah, you got me good. And then Nico, when we were having the panel on Saturday, there was some optimism out of Stockwell about voting our way out of this one, as one of the things he was highlighting. And he also believed the Conservative Party, if voted in at the next round, could turn the ship around. But I think we're surrounded by icebergs, and a lot of them have blue and red paint on them already. So we've hit a couple of them. Do you think, how do you feel after we've had that panel? We thought about it some more a couple more days ago. What do you think? Do you think he's got a point there, or is he seeing something very differently than we are?
With all due respect to Stockwell Day, he is thinking like a politician that's been in politics or around politics his whole life, or at least for a very, very long time. And I don't think he sees the actual problem. We are not voting our way out of out of the mess that we're in right now. If you still believe, so for sake of argument, let's play devil's advocate for a second. During the last election, Election Canada made a mistake in Terrebonne, right out of Montreal, super close to where I am right now. I was just close to there yesterday. They made a mistake on the letters that they gave for the people that were voting before the election. They didn't put the right address or the right postal code, so some of the votes were sent to the wrong place and were never tabulated. It came out, it went to court, and you know what they told? We're not going to redo a full election. Even though they admitted that they knew about the problem, they did not fix the problem. So we literally know that in Canada, it doesn't matter because it was won by one vote. Do you remember that story? One single vote difference between the Liberal and the Bloc Québécois. And the person that brought this up to media would have voted for the Bloc Québécois. So they should have had a re-election. They said no. It doesn't matter. We're not going to have another one. And think about all the people that already voted. No, screw you. If every vote matters, you need to have another election, which they didn't. So they proved to us that our elections are not fair. They are chosen. They chose the Liberal MP over the person that should have been elected, the Bloc Québécois, because supposedly there was a lot more votes that were lost and they were going that way. So we already know that our elections are not secure, that they don't care, and Election Canada is not going to respect what they're supposed to be doing in the first place. So we can't vote ourselves out of this, and let's not even go down the road of the machines that they use for voting and how they're easily manipulated. This has been shown time and time and time again. But the point is that we need to have a change in our politicians altogether, because we can't run a country without politics. But remember, we had Nadine Wellwood on our show last week, and she said we need to put back government in that tiny cage that we let them out of. It needs to be very small. They need to take care of our security, as in military, judiciary, and that's it. All the rest, small government, like Franco was saying, cut everywhere. 1 out of 5 Canadians work for some level of government right now. Municipal, provincial, or some argue that it's 25%, some argue it's 20%, so I'll use a small number, but 1 out of 5 Canadians work for the government. It's unsustainable. We cannot continue the way that we are. We are literally under a government that is ready to do whatever it does, whatever it needs to do, even if it's unconstitutional. Remember the Freedom Trucker? They did something that was unconstitutional. So we have the proof that Election Canada doesn't care about election results. They're gonna, even if it's their fault, they're not gonna do anything about it. We have a government that is taking advantage, that is crushing us, that is crushing dissent. Look at what happened with Chris Barber and Tamara Lynch. They're everywhere that we look, we're seeing bad stuff, and Canadians are like, yeah, we can vote ourselves out of this. So I agree with Kevin that it's going to have to get worse before it gets better. But how much worse is it going to become? Because I strongly believe, man, that the digital ID is the line that we cannot cross. If that line is crossed, I don't know that we can backtrack that. I always think about communism. You know what they say? You can vote communism in, but you'll have to fight to get it out. And I believe that that digital ID is that line in the sand that if we cross it, we're fucked.
I think we crossed the Rubicon so long ago you can't see it anymore. So I think we're already there. So Kev, 2029 is this the next time we're gonna have an election? Do you think the next little bit there's going to be no chance to get the Liberals out?
I just don't think it really matters. Like it really doesn't matter. So if we get the Liberals out, are the Conservatives going to form a majority? Absolutely not. The way that the electorate in Canada is set up is it's set up to guarantee that the Conservative government will never form a majority. So even if they do get in, it'll be a minority government. They have to have a coalition with another party, maybe the NDP. But what is most likely to happen is the media will scream the sky is falling, and within 18 months you'll have a non-confidence vote, and they'll be booted, and you'll have another stuck with a Liberal Party, another Liberal win. So what Nico was talking about with Elections Canada, they don't care about election integrity, election interference. I think also that we have to look at the mainstream media when they're actually using psychological warfare techniques on the Canadian people to manipulate public opinion, to get them to vote the way that they want. That whole elbows up campaign was created by the Liberal Party way before they actually announced it. Right? They actually had internal polling done on it. This was a propaganda tool that they decided to use against the Canadian people. So yes, you have Elections Canada that we can't be trustworthy, and then you have mainstream media that is actually working with the natural ruling party of Canada, which is the Liberal Party, to keep that money flowing, right? To keep those wheels greased, because the Liberal Party, they always seem to bail out the media, give them billions of dollars, hire civil servants, they always make sure that their own is taken care of. So now there's such a fortress, or this strong field that's being built around this natural governing party that nothing short of a bulldozer is needed to come in and knock that out. And that bulldozer would be somewhere like maybe like a melee, like I was talking about earlier. But I don't see that happening. So the only way that these walls can come down is for things to get much worse, and people will unfortunately have to lose everything. Maybe when the next trick Mark Carney pulls is trying to figure out how to take all the equity in the boomers real estate before they can pass it on to the next generation, right? It's going to take something like that for the older generation to change their mind and actively vote against this Liberal Party if they start going after home equity, in forms of tax. So I don't know if they're going to do that. So we would literally have to wait for an entire generation of people to die before things could actually get better. And that sounds cynical, but that I think about this a lot. And then they managed to import millions of people from the third world just in time to offset the boomers that are dying off. So like, what are you
It's all
going
a
to do?
coincidence, Kev. All a coincidence. I don't know what you're talking about. This is all coincidental. It has nothing to do with anything, right? Mass immigration is just, we didn't plan this. Yeah, go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, let me bring up this post from Kev as well, because I think it nails everything. Liberals are trying to convince us that life in Canada is great and people are making more money than ever before, ... while simultaneously telling us that kids are going hungry because their parents can't afford to feed them. Nothing says a strong economy like child poverty.
25.5% of households in Canada
brother.
cannot afford. Yeah, go ahead.
And that was a video that I pulled from the House of Commons of two. They're giving two completely opposite talks. It's like Orwellian. It's insane.
25.5 25.5% of households in Canada right now cannot afford daily necessities. If you calculate daily necessities like food, rent, food, rent, insurance, you look at your car payments, you look at a cell phone, internet, and one of your kids in high school. I did a calculation. Depending where you are in Canada, you're paying between 90 to 103% of your household income. That is around 130, 140,000. 90 to 103. And then you have articles by the CBC that are telling us that we Canadians are not going to the US. Our boycott of the US is working because they're losing $5 billion, or their plan. The estimate is that they're going to lose about $5 billion this year. And I'm like, hey, you fucking dumbasses, we can't afford to go on vacation. The only people that can afford to go on vacation are liberal boomers that fucked us, that keep on voting for the same people that are destroying the economy. And the worst part is they're literally giving the bill to their grandchildren. This is what blows my mind the most about this, is that those baby boomers are literally putting it on the back of their grandchildren to fix the tab. They're the ones that are going to be they're going to be facing the problem, because those baby boomers, they're going to be fine.
It's like they climbed up the ladder and pulled the ladder up after them, so nobody else could come up.
And they think that they deserve it. This is the worst part. Talk to those baby boomers. They're going to tell you that we've worked so long to do this. We deserve this. You lived in the best time in North American history. From the Second World War to today, you guys have never faced anything. You were given jobs where you could literally work at the grocery store. Your wife stayed home. You had 2 cars, a house, and you had 2 kids at home. Like, it's insane. They still, most of them believe that we still live in the same Canada I grew up in the 80s. It's absolutely insane to be so far disconnected from the reality. But at the same time, are you surprised when we're ran by politicians that are not hurting for anything, that also don't live in the real world? They don't understand what it is to be a Canadian that's suffering, that can't afford daily necessities. So are you that surprised that the boomers are still voting for them? I'm not.
And that's another reason why, I can't get behind, Pierre Poilievre's message of, we care so much about, the poor, and we care so much about this, when, everything that he has is taxpayer funded. You know what would give Pierre Poilievre more credibility? Say, you know what? I'm not going to take all of this. I'm going to pay my own way. And he has never said that. He has never done that. He's never worked in the private sector. He's just another lifelong civil servant. And the only thing worse than a career politician is a central banker. And when your choice in an election is a career politician versus a central banker, you don't have a choice.
Yeah, I was asked in church today, is Mark Carney really as bad as some of you guys are saying? And I had to look the guy straight in the eyes. He's worse. Yeah, he's much worse. Because I had to correct myself, because I once called him a globalist. But no, he's the globalist. Like, he's the one behind the globalist. He's definitely a lot worse than we think, that we know. And I think we're going in a really bad direction. I know this budget's going to pass for sure. Sorry, bud. I did work my ass off. Yeah, you did. Well, yes. I don't think that's.
I was
really
just going to answer him. Answer him over text. So, Wilf, I'm not saying you didn't. What I'm saying is that we're not living in the world that you did. Back then, you didn't have to work the way that you could afford a house, to have kids, to have 2 cars, to have vacations every year on one salary. And that salary didn't
in your early
to
20s.
Yeah, you didn't have to
you
make
could do that.
300 grand a year either to do it, is my point. The vast majority of Canadians could afford this lifestyle that no longer exists. And the reason the boomers are still voting for the people that are destroying us is because they think that lifestyle still exists. They're not hurting. The average boomer is not hurting. There's Fraser Institute came out with numbers, and they were saying it was something ludicrous, between 30 to 40% of the average Canadian could not afford $1,000 if it needed to come out of their account right now. If they needed to spend $1,000 on an emergency, they couldn't afford it. For the boomers, it was less than 18% or 19%. So it's completely ludicrous. It's literally around 2 to 3 times more average individuals, like just 18 to 55, than the boomers. So they're not living in the same reality. And Wilf, you're on my show every day, so you know what I'm saying. I'm not attacking you, but we have to come to the conclusion that a lot of the liberal boomers out there just don't care about their grandchildren. They care more about themselves because they believe that they're entitled to whatever that they have.
Lifelong.
Yet, but you said it perfectly, Kevin. It's like we got up the ladder and then, we're just pulling that ladder and, sorry, no ladder for you.
Yeah, and I think that the people that we're, really talking about is, the lifelong civil servants, the people that worked for the government their whole life that thinks that they work so hard. There's nobody more entitled than a government worker. They work literally maybe 10 hours a week, think that they work 80, and now they're all sitting on their COLA pensions, right? Cost of living adjusted pensions that continue to go up as, even as they're retired. Whereas people in the private sector, you don't have COLA adjusted pensions. So these people that, did the bare minimum, they're like the Homer Simpsons. These people are the Homer Simpsons that did the bare minimum, drifted through life, got everything they wanted, and feel that they're entitled and didn't work for it. The people that are on your show, these are not the people that we're talking about.
I want to take another one if you don't mind here, Jason, because this one is bang. I agree with most points y'all are making, but are there answers to your critique? It's easier to criticize. Pierre Poilievre is the best thing that we have going on. No, he's not. That's basically what we've been saying from the get-go. We even had Franco an hour and a half ago say, top 3 thing, cut their salaries, cut the government, and then stop foreign aid. Like, that's 3 things right there that we could do. None of the politicians are talking about that. 0. None of them want that. We need them to take a cut. We need them to cut through their own government. We need to remove spending. Don't even think about balancing a budget. That's never going to be brought up in a conversation ever fucking again. But there are many ways that we can do it, but there's no politicians talking about this. So you know what the answer is? Unfortunately, and Jim Kurz, like Kevin said, and I agree with him, I say this all the time. You know what the solution is? Enjoy the show, man. Hopefully you can afford popcorn. Enjoy the show and let it break down even more, because that is the only solution right now. Until people wake up to the fact that we're sinking, there's nothing that we can do except try to wake them up. That's it. Like, I literally feel, Jim, I feel like in almost every single movie that has an apocalypse coming, there's always that crazy guy, that long hair, scruffy beard, he's shirtless on the sidewalk, and he's like, the end is coming, the end is coming. That's what I've been doing for 4 years, and it seems that even though I scream, I don't even scream, I present fact to people. I'll present facts, I'll present numbers, and I'll show you what's actually going on. People just don't want to swallow that red pill because it's too big of a pill to swallow to understand that our government is not there to save us. There's no political party out there that's here to save us. It doesn't matter that they're in blue or they're in red. They all work for the same people. Just look at the sworn-in ceremony of the ministers that happened 6 months ago. Who did they swear allegiance to? Was it Canada? No, it was the crown. You know, the leader of the Commonwealth, the guy that actually runs this country. That's where the allegiance is. It's not in Canada. That needs to be fixed. If the people that represent us are not pledging allegiance to us, what does that tell you?
And I kind of want to support Jim a little bit, because the mentality of the lesser of two evils is a good choice, is part of the problem. He may be right out of all the evil choices. Pierre is the less evil, even just by a little bit. But that mentality is what's troubling. We saw in the last election that all third parties took a huge hit. The two-party system is what won in that last election. And that's where we're stuck. We're stuck in the Westminster system, and we need to get out of that. Now, whether we do it province by province, like Alberta, Quebec, and others leaving it completely and doing what they need to do, we can have trade with our partners and our neighbors, but we need to get out of that system, because it's designed and built way before we came along to keep us complicit and compliant to what they're trying to do. So Jim, was it Jim? I think it was. He made a good point, but that's kind of also the problem. His point is the problem. It's the lesser of two evils, and they're both evil, and we got to get out of that system completely. But I don't think Canada's ready for that. But Alberta could be, Quebec could be. So 2026, 2027 could be 2 major years for this particular portion of the conversation. And get behind change. Don't stay with the status quo. Status quo is not working. Get behind some change and support movements like that, because that's where we're going to actually get some change. Kev?
How long did it take for the people of Argentina to, wake up?
Exactly.
20 years, 30 years.
Yeah. In Mexico right now, like the Gen X is or Gen Z is pushing hard right now in Mexico.
That's going to be the generation that changes things. Like I said, you literally need an entire generation of people to disappear and to re-educate a new generation of people. And it's not me that said this. Is Yuri Bezmenov that said this in the 80s. He knew all of this, right? He tried to warn us. We just didn't listen. So that's what it's going to take. So that's why what we have to focus on is the things that matter is maybe teaching your child valuable skills, how to work with your hands, electrician, plumber, pipe fitter, mechanic, and not these useless liberal arts degrees that they're going to spend tens of thousands of dollars going through college or university only to work at a Burger King if they're lucky, or maybe live on welfare. So if your child goes to a public indoctrination camp, public school, at least try to spend the equal and opposite amount of time trying to uneducate them and re-educate them on the dangers of big governments and communist ideology that's being pumped into their soft heads for 8 hours a day for over a decade. So they've played the long game on us, right? This plan didn't start last week, last year or 10 years ago. This plan started, a very, very long time ago. So, if this is a marathon, we just showed up to the starting line and they're already, sipping water at the finish line. They're so far ahead of us. So the only way that we can change the game is to, reset the game and use their own rules against them, and basically say, okay, this generation is lost. Let's start focusing on the next generation. And people say I'm cynical to think that way, but I really don't see how people will magically just change their opinions, even if we get a new government. How are these people that have these very strong opinions, the elbows up crew, the maskers, the arrow followers, how are we going to change their minds? And they were the ones that were really pushing this, and they were the ones, they were in the majority, it seems. So even if we do get a new government, we still have a majority of people that have been ideologically subverted. How are you going to change them and bring them back to reality? And the answer is you can't.
Well, let me give you the result of the Student Vote Canada 2025. So during the federal elections, high schools were voting. It didn't really mean anything, but we got some results from them. And they voted a Conservative Party minority government in 163 seats. Liberal was second with 147. And then it goes down from there. But they were conservative. They were voting conservative. So they're a little bit more conservative than their parents and their grandparents are. So that's a good sign. Okay, so maybe the Gen Z are headed in the right direction. They're also a lot more Catholic than they used to be. They definitely have a lot more faith. And they're probably responding to the fact that we used to have first-time home buyers. The average age was in the early 20s, and today it's 40. So the average first-time home buyer is 40 years old now. So they're probably responding to that market. No jobs, no homes, no future, no babies, and they want
you will owe nothing and be happy type thing.
Yeah, and they're catching on to it, and they don't want to do what their grandparents and parents are doing, which is liberal. So hopefully there's some hope there. So to answer Jim's second part of his question, instead of just critiquing what's the solution is to continue to wake up the young people, because they are going to be the one that comes in to fix this, unfortunately.
And the part that most people don't want to hear is the fact that it's going to take a while to fix what took a while to get us where we are. Because Kevin is absolutely right. This indoctrination that we've been seeing of our youth's mind has been going on for 70 years. How long has CBC been around? That's as long as it's been going on in Canada. As soon as the state controls propaganda, they can say pretty much anything that they want, and people will believe it. So unfortunately, it's going to get worse, and it's going to take a long time before we fix it. But as you were saying, the Gen Z not only would have voted for a conservative government, but they are arguably the most conservative generation in generations, because they are starting, like I reposted a video this morning of just this kid. He looks like he's early 20s, and he's just like, I don't condone what he's eating because it was garbage food that he had in his car, but he basically just shows the passenger seat, and it's a gallon of milk with two boxes of cereal. He's like, that cost me $30. He's like, I had to work 2 hours for 2 boxes of cereals with 1 gallon of milk. When am I ever going to leave my mother's basement? And, you know, it sounds stupid to the average people, and people are just destroying that kid. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, do you not understand how simple that message is? This is great, a great message. That kid, very smart what he did, but this illustrates the problem. If it takes you 2 hours to afford a couple of meals, how long is it going to take you to get a house? And I guarantee you that guy has, he lives in his mother's basement, as he says. He doesn't pay rent. He doesn't have to. So he potentially, you know, back in the days, that kid would have done that for a couple of years, have 20, 30 grand aside, drop that on a house that's worth $150,000 20 years ago, 30 years ago. And that would have been the end. He would have owned a house by early 20s. You said what, 40 now? You don't think that's going to piss off people? Yep. But you don't think that's going to piss off people? Of course it's going to piss off those kids, because they'll never get the dream that was sold to them. I don't know if you remember Fight Club. Fight Club is one of the most brilliant movies ever made. If you watch it and you just listen to what they say, and he said that we are the in-between generation. We have no war. We have no big issue. We have too much time on our hand. Our war is spiritual. And that is what's starting. That's what we had. You were like the guys on this panel here. The next generation is not what they have. They literally have an attrition problem. They have a war that can be physically felt and seen everywhere that they go. You don't think they're going to be pissed off? They're going to be pissed off. So you look at what happened to Nepal, right? They fucking burned parliament. Like, screw you. Like, screw you. They were chasing government workers down the street trying to kill them. This, unfortunately, is going to... I don't want to say... I don't condone violence. I'm not saying that that's what needs to happen. But if you all remember the French Revolution... You know, my co-host the other day said, we need a French Revolution. I'm like, okay, sure. You do realize that's when the guillotine was invented, right? Remember what happened to the king back then? The guillotine was used on him. So I'm not saying that that's what needs to happen, but if it continues the way that it does right now, kids are going to be so frustrated that that might be the only avenue that they believe that they have. You know what I'm saying? Like what happened in Nepal, what might happen in Mexico is not a one-off. If you have a full generation of kids that are becoming mature, that are pissed off because they cannot achieve the dream they were sold, they're going to be pissed off. There's something that's going to happen.
You mentioned Fight Club, and you referenced Fight Club, and I think it was A Bug's Life. That scene where the grasshopper, and they're all talking, and then they just said, it's one little ant. Who cares what one little ant says? And and he says, first it's one ant, then it's a million ants. If those ants wake up, our way of life is over. So we have to send that one ant a message to stay in line. And, that's basically what it is. And, when I watched that movie again, the first thing that came to mind was the Freedom Convoy. They were the ants, and the government had to show them a message to stay in line, because there's millions of us and there's only a handful of them. And as soon as we realize that we have way more power than what we think, it's over for them, and that's what they're afraid of. So that's why there's this push. But I guess to counter my own point in talking about revolution, it leads to mass casualties. Mass casualties and mass humans casualties, not just elites, but regular people. I believe that more people died during the American Revolution than the Americans lost in World War I and World War II. So more Americans died during their civil revolution than went off to battle in those two wars. So people calling for revolution, yeah, sure, but just understand that it comes with mass violence, and the battlefield is in your backyard.
Freedom ain't free.
Yeah.
And at first it's ants, Kevin, and then it's ostriches, right?
And then it's your pets.
That was another message right there.
Yeah, it was. That's the reason why you should never give up your guns.
Yeah, because now we've moved into a society where they can seize and destroy your property right before your eyes. They don't really need more excuses other than they can place the order and the courts will uphold it. It was the authority that they upheld, not the call requirement, but the call authority, which is what was upheld. So big message to all Canadians. They can now seize your property and destroy it right before your eyes.
And they can go after your property, your house and property, in the name of land acknowledgements, and say that they belong to a tribe that was conquered. That's also
raise
something.
foreign flags at city halls too.
And
you can't play Canada there.
Isn't Ottawa on unceded land? Maybe the natives should take back Ottawa.
I keep hearing people say that. Half of Quebec as well.
I would agree on both. They put a claim. There's a tribe that I can't pronounce their name in Quebec on the Gatineau River that's ran by a guy called, and I kid you not, Jean-Guy White Duck. Like I'm darker than he is. I look more native than he does. They're reclaiming 8,000 square kilometers on the Gatineau River. This is how ludicrous we've become. So, yeah.
So are we doing the vote? We got 10 minutes before the results come in. Is that what we see there? 8 minutes?
I gotta head out. It's dinner time for me here. So,
well, thanks a lot for hanging out with us, Kev. I really appreciate that, and it's always good to hear your input. And yeah, I think you have a nice level head that has good fiscal responsibility in it, and you sound pretty fed up, but you're still helping us out to have these conversations. So I appreciate that, man.
Yeah, anytime. Anyways, Nico, Jason, thanks for having me on, and I'll see you guys later.
See you later, man.
And then there were two.
And then there were two.
It was a good episode because I really enjoyed the taxpayer conversation. That was cool.
Yep. One of the things, and I don't want to bash people when I say this, but no matter where I look, it seems there's still a bit of naivete out there where they still think that voting will fix the problem that we're in. Because when I kind of push back on the conservative party, I saw their reaction in their eyes, like, ooh, got to be careful here. Like we can't go too far down that road. And it kind of, I don't want to say it bothers me, but it kind of surprises me that we shouldn't, as conservative, or at least more conservative leaning people, we shouldn't be the first to criticize our leaders. Is it me that's wrong here? But to me, I would expect people to criticize me. If you're on my show and you listen to me and I'm wrong, and you know that I'm wrong, I expect you to tell me. I expect you to tell me in the comments. I'll address it. It has happened before and it will happen again. It's a matter of time before I fuck up again, right? That I say something that is wrong, and guess what? I'll own it, but I expect my audience to tell me that I'm wrong.
Well, it's tribal. And we grew up, cheering for your team, and your team can do no wrong. The other team does everything wrong. So the slash that your team does, let it go. The other team gets a slash. You want to gain misconduct. We're tribal that way. And that's how we play. And also, there's a lot of, I'd rather win than lose to the other guy mentality. Like, a lot of people voted Pierre, not necessarily for Pierre, but they didn't want Carney. And that's not a strong endorsement of the Conservative Party. I personally would want a leader, and I would have voted for him if there was a leader that was strong, came out, opposed the other guy instead of kind of teaming up on certain things, like tariffs and immigration and spending. Like, I did not like any of that coming out of conservatives. It's why I went independent, and I also went with the PPC, is because the PPC are saying all the right things. Whether or not they'll get empowered to do it, that's a whole different conversation, but they're at least saying the right things. If you go look at that platform, a lot of my debates when I was a candidate wasn't the platform. They didn't care to argue the platform. They actually agreed with the platform. All they cared about was don't split the vote, and let's make sure Carney doesn't get in. And when you have that single focus mindset, you will accept faults and problems, and you won't hold your guy accountable. And that's unfortunate. But that is the two-party Westminster system, like I was saying before. And until we get out of that, we're stuck. It's always going to be two wings of the same bird, and you're just picking a color here. The only way to get out of that is to get out of that system altogether, get to a full republic, or an actual republic. I think the ideal solution would be Canada being a constitutional republic. We can get to proper representation, but that's not going to happen with this two-party system. They won't let that happen. And that's why 1776 was required for the US, because they were going to be set up the same way Canada was. So, the revolution. Now, today's revolution doesn't have to be bloody. Jamaica's doing it. They're using their legislature or parliament to separate from the crown and become a republic. They can do that through paperwork now. But you need to have the will of the people to do that. We're just too indoctrinated at this stage. It may be the next generation that does that. But the separation of Canada into individual republics like Alberta, Quebec, Saskatchewan, Northern BC might be the way forward. And within a generation, we might be the United Republics of Canada because we come back together under that umbrella. But until then, I don't see a proper way to get this done, man.
We talk about this, at least I talk about this all the time. How do you wake people up, right? And I agree with you that there's the middle generation. My generation is screwed. There's nothing, if you haven't been convinced yet that there's a problem, there's nothing much more I can do to kind of show you the light. You're just not ready for it. Hopefully one day you will be. But I try to reach, as you said, the younger generation, like the people that are out there that are still wondering, like, why is their dream, the dream that they were sold, not attainable anymore? And those are the people I'm really trying to focus on. But at the same time, I want to have the conversation with the Francos and the Kris of this world that have a very intelligent way of thinking. They know what they're talking about when it comes to finance, when they come to policies. They understand what needs to change and what's ludicrous and what we can do to get better. But why is it that they have such a hard line when it comes to politics? As in, there's leaders that they will endorse. And that's the part I don't understand. I rack my brain around this. Why is it so easy for them to understand the problems? Well, easy. I'd say simple. It's simple because they're in that world and they're very educated in what they do. But why is that bridge so hard to cross? Because I'm not asking this as in, I'm not trying to be disrespectful to them, but earlier, and I know you fed me on, I know you enough to know that you knew I would go there by you bringing it up. So, and I did it on purpose because I wanted to see their reaction. I wanted to see if they would talk about it, but you can see that they're like, they kind of shy away from going there. So I don't know if, I don't understand why. I just don't understand. And I've been trying to rack my mind around it, and it's almost easier to convince a younger generation that hasn't been colluded in tribalism than to try to convince someone that understand what's wrong but doesn't understand that the people in power really don't care. It doesn't matter that it's not a left versus right issue. It's a top versus bottom. And both the liberals and the conservatives are part of that top problem. They're not on our side. They're not with us. They're with them, representing people that don't stand for us.
Well, it could be also the lack of faith. Like, if you ask the average person right now, who's the most powerful force right now? A lot of people might say Trump, some of them may say Carney, but the answer is God Almighty. And a lot of people don't do that anymore. Good news, though, is the younger generation is. We're seeing at our church, it's filling up all the time. Like, we're have to expand now. It's getting so full. So there may be some hope there. But when you put your faith in your government and you think your government is your savior, then you're going to be trying to vote your savior in order to save everybody. That's misguided. No government is a savior. They're the opposite of a savior. They're not there to save you. They're there to govern you. And when more people wake up to that, I think it's going to be helpful. But it's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to be one bad budget. And it may not be until we're bankrupt and IMF is coming in and telling us what we need to do, because Greece woke up after that. Argentina, Mexico starting to. It's when you get super poor that you start to wake up on that. And our boomers, and I'm not using that in a derogatory term, because we got in trouble on our show this morning using the term boomers. It's not a derogatory term. It's the categorization of the baby boomers of the World War II people, the generation there. They don't know what rough is like. They grew up working hard, and they were able to keep most of it. Their taxes went up, but not to the point where they weren't able to go ahead and have a good life, raise their kids, have their assets and homes. If they go on after home equity taxes and start bringing that kind of stuff in, if the pension fails, the CPP fails, and cost of living keeps going up the way it is, eventually even they are going to feel the squeeze. And at that point, maybe that might be enough to tip the scales. And we don't have to wait for them to die out, like Kevin was saying. We just have to wait for them to pour out, like actually become poor, and then they'll start to change their vote. But unfortunately, Nico, the way it's set up, it's going to be the less liberal that gets in there next, and it's not going to be a savior. So when they stop trying to get the government to save you, and maybe put your face somewhere else and then become independent and focus on it yourself, maybe then we'll be able to right this ship. But I don't see that happening anytime soon. It looks like here the vote's all done.
Obviously, it passed.
Yeah.
Both sides clapping. Awesome. If you want a better representation of a uniparty, there you have
What was
it.
the final vote? Have they shared that yet?
They haven't shown it yet, but you can imagine.
Yeah, I'm very curious. Why are both sides plotting? But anyways, your comment as we wait for that. Do you think faith is the way forward on this one? Not necessarily religion, but
The
faith.
question is as follows. Mr. Champagne, seconded by Mr. Carney, moved that this House approve in general the budgetary policy of the government.
The 10-minute period for members voting electronically has started, and the House will now proceed to the vote for members participating in person. All those in favor of the motion will please rise.
Mr. Carney. Mr. Ali. Madame Diab. Mr. McDonald-Malpeck. Mr. McGinty. Mr. Lightbound. Mr. Robertson. Ms.
The Lightbound's still there,
Lebruson.
huh?
Mr. Leblanc. Madame Jolie.
I thought he was be done after the
McKinnon-Gatineau.
convoy.
Mr.
But let's
Champagne.
come back in the
Ms. Thompson. Mr. Hodgson. Mr. Ananda-Sangari. Ms. Haidu. Madame Michel. Mr. Guilbeault. Mr. Fraser. Mr. Sidhu Brampton East. Mrs. Oshelsky. Mr. Solomon. Mrs. Valdez. Monsieur Duclos. Ms. Gould. Madame Petitpas-Taylor. Mr. Blair. Mr. Wilkinson. Ms. Fry. Ms. Chager. Mr. Osborne. Mr. Fagascados. Mr. Fuhr. Mr. Vancouverden. Ms. Gainey. Madame Provost. Ms. Sahota. Mr. Belanger, Desnete, Mississippi, Churchill River.
Can they just say all of them have voted for it? Is that not simpler?
Ms. Anand.
No, this is a
Ms.
procedure.
Alty. Ms. Gullmasty.
Yeah, of course.
Mr. Sarai. Ms. McLean, Esquimalt Sandwich Soup. Mr. Long. Mr. Zericelli. Madame Chanette. Ms. Latanzio. Mr. Nakvi. Mr. Housefather. Mr. Norman Mohammed.
Mohammed.
Madame Mena. Monsieur Miller.
Miller.
Ms. Jasic.
Jazik.
Mr. Beach.
Beach.
Ms. Scroll.
Grove.
Mr. Duguid.
Mr. Duguid.
Mr. Erskine Smith.
Erskine Smith.
Mr. Fisher.
A politician called Do Good. That's a oxymoron right there.
Housefather was another one I could go back.
Mr. Asasi. Mr. Grant. Mr. Letao. Mr. Bardizi. Madame Kayabaga. Mr. Lamuter. Madame Brière. Mr. Turnbull.
I think Serena's right.
Mr. Calloway.
They're earning their paychecks right now.
Mr. Hogan.
They're protecting
Hard
their
work.
pay-
Koutrakis.
Yeah.
Ms. Chi. Mr. Miles. Mr. Biddle. Mr. Cormier. Ms. Dillon. Ms. Zerowitz. Mr. El Khoury. Mr. Fergus. Mr. Fonseca. Mr. Yacono. Ms. Khalid. Mr. Lozon. Mr. Maloney. Ms. Suds.
What would our system
Madame
be like if there were no
Desrochers.
parties?
Ms. McKelvey.
Everybody was a representative.
Mr. Gasparo.
And that's it.
Was just an
Mr.
independent.
Henley.
Yeah.
Madame Rochefort. Mr.
And they
Casey.
voted the way
Mr. Blois.
They're conscious of
Madame
morals
Bendayan.
and constitutional
Madame
law.
Fortier.
What
Mr.
a
Oliphant.
concept would
Mr.
that be? Eh?
Baptiste. Mr. Clausen.
That was
Madame
originally
Novak.
designed for the parties
Mr.
to go over.
Ramsey.
Yeah.
Ms. Church. Mr. McKinnon.
That's what people
Coquitlam,
think they're
Coquitlam.
doing when they're voting for representation, but they're not.
Mr. Morrissey.
No.
Mr. Shifke. Mr. Sheehan.
The fact that we still have a concept
Ms.
of a
Cedar
whip,
Brampton South.
people have they're
Ms.
fine with that.
Vandenbeld.
Because
Mrs.
that's right
Zaid.
there. Whip is a
Ms. Yip.
term to get somebody
Mr.
back in the
Baker.
shape, just like slaves,
Mr.
right?
D'Entremont. Madame Lalonde. Mr. Pulowski. Mr. Weiler. Mr. Zuberi. Mr. Eolfson. Madame Lapointe, Rivière de Mille-Îles. Mr. Baines. Mr. Cotto. Mr. Gahir. Ms. Hefner. Madame Lapointe, Sudbury. Mr. Souza. Mr. Carr. Ms. Akan. Mr. Al Saoud. Madame Auguste. Mr. Chang. Mr. Clark.
That's the girl
Mr.
that
Connor.
got the
Madame
Terrebonne
Bandurand.
Auguste. That's the girl that got Terrebonne by
Mr.
one
Deschamps
vote,
Thériault.
where they
Oh,
refused
wow.
to recount. Yeah.
Madame Mendez.
Yeah, that should have been a runoff election
Ms.
of just the
Fancy.
two.
Mr. Fanjoy. Mr. Greaves. Ms.
You don't need a whole new
Harrison.
federal
Ms.
election, just a
Hurdle.
by-election of
Mr.
just the
Joseph.
two.
Yep.
Mr.
candidates.
Lavoie. Mr. McDonald Cardigan. Mr. Millette Bay of Quinty. Ms. Miedema. Madame Mingarelli. Ms. Nathan. Ms. Wien. Mr. Tumba. Ms. O'Rourke. Mr. Rana. Ms. Royer. Mr. Saini. Mr. Sari. Mr. Sawatsky. Ms. Sodi. Mr. St. Pierre. Ms. Tesser Dirksen. Mr. Villeneuve. Mr. Watchorn. Ms. May.
And there you go. She gave it away.
Well, it's a good thing she's wearing green for the snake skin.
All those opposed to the motion. All those opposed to the motion will please rise.
Mr. Polyev. Mr. Doherty. Mr. Schmale.
Yeah, I don't know if we have to go through all this.
Mr.
So
Bazan.
it's exactly
Bloch.
the way we thought.
Mrs. Thomas.
So abstain. So
Deltel.
NDP
Mr.
abstain.
Paulus. Mr. Upal. Ms. Landsman. Mr. Halon.
So, you know, man, it's exactly what I was saying earlier. Now, this is just a show for the masses. This is bread and circuses. If they really wanted to collapse, if they wanted to dissolve Parliament, they had the chance to do it 2 weeks ago. The Bloc Québécois, the NDP, the Green voted for the amendments of the Bloc. The Conservatives sided with the Liberals.
Mr. Duncan.
Yep.
I don't know what it's going to take for people to wake up that this is just, you know, I call it, I don't remember how Kevin called it earlier, but I call it WWE for adults. This is, instead of being shirtless and on steroids, you have a bunch of feminine men in suits. That's what I see. That's the only fucking difference. Absolutely insane. It's theatrics. It's just, and he gets up and he buttons up his shirt and he's all proud. I'm like, proud of what? Proud of what? That you still have a job?
Well, I think at this stage, what Pierre might be proud of is the fact that the other two CPC members that were going to cross the floor didn't, and they were able to stop that. That's the only pride he could take from this, because it still could have happened.
And you know what I'm the most curious to see now is how the big C conservative are going to be praising the Conservative Party for standing up to Carney's budget. Oh, they tried. They tried their best, but it didn't happen. But they'll never mention what happened 2 weeks ago that I repeated like 3 times on this show already. Like, you know, it takes a lot of mental gymnastic to convince me that a woman can have a penis, but it takes a lot of mental gymnastic for a small C conservative to still be a big C Conservative Party follower.
And look, they could have tried to negotiate, remove a bunch of things out of the budget to gain the support of the Conservative Party. It is very clear that the Liberals have no desire to work with Conservatives, full stop. And this should be yet another shot across the bow for Alberta. There's nothing coming down the pipe for us as well. Pun intended on that one.
Well played, sir.
Yeah. So we got 2 more weeks. This is the 3rd deadline. And either 3 strikes, Carney's out, or 3 strikes, Danielle's in trouble. I was just had coffee again with locals, and I am having a hard time painting optimism and hopefulness with the current leadership here. So hopefully there's things I don't know about that is going to change that. But no, on the ground, people are getting pretty frustrated. The base is getting pretty frustrated out here in Alberta. They're not convinced it's going to go well for them at all.
And you know, as much as I hate, as much as I praise, or I actually hit on the Conservatives literally every day, I'm not doing it from a bad place. I'm doing it because I know they're hurting, but they need to give up on their idea that Pierre Poilievre's here to save them, or that the Conservative Party is here to save them. This is the part this is what I'm really trying to make them realize, is that we're on our own. If you want this to change, we need to take over. Just regular people need to take over. Because what's going on right now, how can you condone this? How can you condone what we're seeing right now?
Well, it's a very scary proposition, though, for people on that you're speaking to right now. Because what do you want them to do? Not vote? A vote for another candidate that can't get in? Shed votes so that there's more Liberal that gets in? That's what's going through their mind. It's a very tough proposition that you're providing there, and I know that because I spoke to a lot of these people. Like Pierre pivoted when Carney came in because he kneecapped him. I took away the carbon tax debate. No carbon tax. That went out the window. Trudeau went out the window. And then they aligned on too many things. If he took a complete opposite perspective, for example, deportation of illegals, started to run with that, financial responsibility in the government, fiscal responsibility, ran with that. Just like what we heard Franco say. If he ran against Ottawa, he may have done a lot better. I probably would have been behind him supporting it. I want a strong, conservative, right-leaning leader. I don't know who that's going to be, but certainly not Pierre at this stage. I think he's proven time and time again. Maybe the one opportunity is during this leadership review, if he ends up losing it and somebody else comes up, because there is a group of new CPC MPs. We're not around during Bill C4 and some of the other stuff, but they're brand new. Inside of there may be a couple potential new leaders that may be able
like
to
Aaron
step
Gunn.
up.
People seem to
Aaron
like
Gunn's
Aaron
cool.
Gunn.
Yeah, there's a couple of them, but Aaron Gunn, yeah, he's cool. I don't dislike him. But there's a couple in that new class of CPC MPs. There's a couple that could step forward here.
Leslyn Lewis. That's the electronic vote. Leslyn Lewis. But you know we had Dallas Brody on the show yesterday.
There you go. So abstained. NDP abstained.
Yep.
So
yeah, they
NDP
said they
abstained.
would.
Yeah,
they said they would. You might as
I just
well
wanted
just give it away to them. Might as well give it to the Liberal at this point. You're just not.
That means right now that a majority of people in the House did not vote for it. Some of them abstained.
Yeah, but if you, I think it was in The Prince, Machiavelli says that the worst thing that you can be is undecided. You have two choices and decisions. You either are for it or against it. Because if you're always lukewarm, you're always in the middle, and you don't want to take a decision, both sides will hate you. At least if somebody votes against me and has the balls to tell it to my face, to stand up to me, I'll have respect for that person, and I know how they are. I can have an idea of the type of person I'm dealing with. Somebody that's in the middle that never takes a decision, you can't trust them at all because you never know how they're going to react. So how can you trust them?
Well, Elizabeth May, I think, just ended her career, though. Like, I don't think she
Oh,
has
yeah.
any intention to come back now. Like, her constituents are not going to like what she did there. She could have abstained for save a little bit of face or voted no, which is what they would have wanted. But there you go. So I think her career is going to be over. This is the last time we'll see her do a term. And I wonder why she did that. Do you think she got some sort of something out of this?
Free alcohol for life. I would say that's probably all it takes to get Elizabeth Bay on your side.
Yeah. Kevin posted something that was hilarious. Like, one way we could deal with this is cash in all of her empties, and we won't have deficit spending anymore. Something
Free
along those
election.
lines.
Free election.
Yeah. All right, brother. Well, there we go. We've got the answer. It passes. The ship is still sinking. None of the holes got plugged, and they're going to take us all down with them. I hope the lifeboat of Alberta is ready for this, and Quebec, and maybe some other provinces. Because that would be the only thing that would shake up this government, is if there's a referendum vote for separation, and then you enter negotiation. But I don't know if there's enough respect for Albertans for the federal government to do anything, even in that situation. We got to be prepared to go.
Maybe both provinces needs to happen because there's an election coming in Quebec, right? And the person that is talking about separation is doing actually really good in the polls.
Yeah, he's leading the polls. I saw that.
So don't be surprised. And he's a well-spoken guy. Like, he is not, as much as I don't see the usefulness of Quebec separating, because we don't have the natural resources that an Alberta has, for example, which you guys, it blows my mind that you guys are still part of Canada. To this day, I don't understand how you guys are still around, but Quebec separating, Alberta separating, maybe Saskatchewan separating. Yeah. Oh, see, there you go. Vicky Lindsay's basically saying Saskatchewan needs to go as well. So that's basically, I'm stealing her words, or she's stealing mine, whatever. But maybe they'll send a message, but I don't know.
Albertans are pretty tolerant, and they do want to help. It's in our nature. We do want to help. And we have been propping up a lot of Canada for quite some time. And it would be like a father trying to leave a bad relationship. Like, you feel, you're the provider, you've been raising and helping for so long, and you want to keep doing that. But at some point, the relationship's so bad, you have to consider your other options. So look, we got 2 more weeks. That 2 weeks to flatten the curve, 2 weeks to expose Carney. We keep having that goal line move, but I said it on Friday. The deadline for the 16th was actually now put on Danielle. It was no longer on Carney. Carney came out and said, no, we're not doing anything. It wasn't on the major project list. Danielle needed to now speak up and be strong about it. So we'll see where she's at with that. And she will not have another opportunity to move that deadline. Her base is really upset, and we're gonna be testing that pulse out at the AGM at the end of this month. We're gonna see, does she still have 91% support, or is it a lot lower now?
Probably a lot lower. Probably a lot.
Yeah, it is a lot lower, because I know a lot of people.
If I had to bet on this, it's a lot lower.
I know a lot of people that supported her strongly last year that don't anymore, and I don't know anybody that didn't support her last year but does now. That the movement isn't in that direction. The movement is people who did support her are not supportive anymore, and I'm sad. Like, I don't want to see this. I want to see a strong party that can take on the NDP and fend them off. So I'm going to stay on the optimism train just a little bit longer, because getting off sucks right now.
I feel you, man. Man, again, it's always great recording with you, bro. Like, always a pleasure, even if it's 3.5 hours long, or 2.5 hours long. Yeah, 2.5 hours long.
It's a great relationship so far. Nobody's talking about black eyes and getting out of it at this stage. So, Nico, I'm happy to record with you and go live with you and have an audience with you. It's a lot of fun.
Amen to that.
Although I
brother.
don't know if Stockwell's returning my messages anymore. So I'll keep
I'm
you.
sorry if that's my fault. I often have that effect on people.
Yeah. And I'm just
But again,
saying,
but you know, man, I know that you wouldn't be recording content with me if you didn't at least understand where I'm coming from, and
Yeah,
it needs
you're a
to
good
be
man.
done. No, but it needs to be done. Like this is the problem with Canada, is that there's not enough people ready to break tables, not just flip them, but break those tables and not apologize for having values, and those values being the old school Canadian values. So I think we need more guys like Kevin, guys like me. They're ready to just say it. Say it. You don't like it? I don't really give a fuck that your feelings are hurt. Don't care. Don't care. My feelings are hurt every single day watching what people are doing to Canada. So,
Well, it's helpful for guys like me who are trying to be diplomatic and have conversations. And then I can say, wow, do you really want Nico and Kevin to show up, or do you want to finish this with me? And
you just
it can't
throw me
work
the
with me.
ball, yeah. Oh, it
I'm like,
works
"All right,
great for a
release the
guy like
hounds."
you. It goes great for a guy like you because I can play the devil, not the devil, but the bad cop all the time, right?
Yep. Well, I don't know how much respect the cops have right now with the RCMP, but in either case, diplomatic, you have to have some strength behind you as well. You need a good second line to get the job done sometimes, right? To steal a sports analogy there.
Agreed, brother.
All right. Well, let's run. Going to get back to the family and get back to my evening. And thanks a lot for having another show about this.
Yeah, man. It's always a pleasure. I love recording with you. And for the people out there, I'm going live in like 50 minutes. So we do have, obviously, we're going to talk about the election, not the election, but the lack thereof, should I say, the non-vote that happened today. But we're also going to have the food professor to speak about clone meats. So, by the way, great episode. I listened to what you did with him. I'm just going to push it even. You know what I do. I'm going to push it even further. But
I
you went to
opened the door
some
for you to
places.
kick it down.
You had some questions that I wanted to ask, so I get to ask it even deeper, knowing already what he believes in. So yeah, so for the people that want, at Real Nico Lagan, we're going live in 50 minutes. We're going to talk at 8:30 Eastern time with the food professor, and we're going to talk about clone meats and what it means for Canada. So,
And you have Sean Buckley coming up this week too, right?
on Thursday, to talk about the fact that not labeling products is nothing new. Clone Meats is putting it out there, is refreshing Canadians' memory that, yes, this is something that Health Canada permits. But Sean Buckley is going to come on the show to speak about the past 30 years of fighting Health Canada and how not labeling products is not something new. That's something that Health Canada has the right to choose not to do. So that's insane. That's absolutely insane that they get to pick and choose. Oh yeah, but not this one. That's okay. You don't need to tell us what that actually is. People don't need to know that. So yeah.
Well, have yourself a great show. It's going to be a good one. I'll probably check it out. See how far you can push this guy.
And he's right here in Montreal too. I should probably go meet him one time to speak to him face to face.
We'll go flip that dinner table on him then with that clone meat on there.
Brother, again, we'll see you soon. And thanks for the people in the audience. Same for the comments. It's always a pleasure. Without you guys, we wouldn't do what we do. So thanks for being here.
Take care and God bless.